Hi, I'm Angified. I started Angified Presents.
We share the love of music.
It has been medicine and therapy. Nothing else worked.
It has saved many of us. With mental health, we need to open our eyes.
Hurt people hurt people.
We ask that you listen, comprehend, and relate with your ears.
Form that heart of unity and one.
We share on this stage.
Statistics, feelings.
And ourselves.
We stand with the belief to be you, to be heard, and to be original.
We all may be different, with opinions and beliefs.
At the end of the day, we are all brothers and sisters.
We are family.
We ask that you join us in a magical journey with artists from around the world. Open your minds, let in the love,
and listen with your hearts.
We all want a better tomorrow. Be one.
Communicate and look out for one another. And then, and only then, will you find the world.
We
will
find
find
peace in all the world.
You'll find the world. And you will find in this shining world. He was among us in every boy and girl. Many have been broken, red hearts turn black. Love will melt the ice and turn it back, and you will find the world. You will find the world. You will find the world. And when you find a place called home, where everyone is free to roam, a whole new world, a better place for our children's futures at stake. And you'll find, with music in your soul, laughter in your hearts, together we can grow a better place, with love in our soul. And you will find, together we can save it all. And you will find, and you will find a place called home, where everyone is free to roam, a better place, a whole new world for
have changed. On a PC or a Mac and even with a mobile device, we'll be talking about it all every Thursday night. From software to plugins and sys that entice. Dive deep into tech and let creativity take flight. Talkin IT. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. From bedroom producers to seasoned pros, we're breaking it down so knowledge grows. Whether you're a DJ or a beat making wizard, we got the tips and tricks to make your sound sizzle. Mixing and mastering, that's our jam. With the tutorials and tips on how much rap. Get the best quality from your setup and gear. Tune in every week and lend us your ear. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. We're talking IT. We're talking IT. Every Thursday night on Angified.
Oh, it's Thursday night.
It is, once again.
Do you know what your kids are watching?
No. You
They're
don't want to know what
watching
your kids are watching.
IT.
They're trying to learn about all of that because we got all the information on a
No,
Thursday.
and they might be watching tonight because we're going to go down the retro gaming rabbit hole, which makes me feel like a kid.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always been a huge fan of video games of all types, and the retro stuff especially, because it really brings me back to, as you say, the way video games were when I was a kid. So very different.
Yeah, after the VR, rabbit hole we went down last week,
Yeah.
I started looking into the retro game stuff. I had looked at that back in 2019, 2020, like the VR.
Yeah.
And looking at it last week, I was like, oh my God, everything's changed.
So much. But
Yeah,
I mean, at their core, though, when you look at game design of all the different games, of all the different iterations of all the games over the years, there's still only so many different types of games that there are. So it's nice to see, sometimes truly unique games that you've never seen anything like it before. So they come around rarely, but when they do come around, it's not just knock them out 47 or racing game 116 or whatever. Like there's something specific about a game that hasn't been done before. Like when they first did Portal would be an example I liked. I hadn't seen a game like that before, where you're exchanging two things like that, or a shadow game where it was like you're running around in the real world and then you can run around as your shadow to get to places you couldn't get to as a real world person. So things like that were game design features that I enjoyed that made things different than than everything else that you seem to see at the time.
Yeah, and what's cool with these emulators, the way that I've got this set up, I can play 5 different versions of the same game because
exactly,
like Donkey Kong, I've got 5 different versions from ColecoVision, Atari.
Oh yeah. Now ColecoVision is the one that I had, and Donkey Kong Jr. as well would be one that would be on my list from there. But Donkey Kong was one of those that we played a lot back then, and probably Super Zaxxon in that same time frame on the ColecoVision.
Yeah, and I've got all the Zaxxons.
Oh yeah.
Matter of fact, here, let's to the IT cave.
There it is.
Yeah, and this is the box I've been working on. What I did is I took one of my old music machines, and I've tried a couple of different approaches, and we're going to see in some of our opening videos the different options on how you can put together a retro machine.
Mm-hmm.
I chose to go with a, a software called batocera, and it's basically a Linux distribution, but it takes all the different emulators that are available and puts them in a nice organized library. It's like Netflix, except for games. And you boot up off of a USB stick, or in my case, I upgraded to a USB drive because I'm going to need the space.
Yeah.
And I can put this hard drive on any one of my computers, boot up like this, and I've got every console I ever wanted.
Nice.
And right now, I've got 6,963 games.
And only 5 are Donkey Kong? No, that's impossible.
Well, there
5
might
per
be a
console,
few.
right?
There might be a few extra Donkey Kongs I haven't come across yet, but like
Main's
so
one of my
far,
favorite. Yeah.
I've got the MAME emulator, which I still got to get this one configured. This is the one that plays all the classic
Oh yeah.
stand-up games.
That was the one that I had the most back in, going back decades, when they first started with the emulators, that was the one that I started using was the MAME emulator, and had all kinds of favorites in there for sure.
And this is where you get those original arcade games
With
that
the ROMs. Yeah.
that you actually played. And then of course, my first game console was an Atari 20. Although I didn't have an Atari 2600, I had the Sears knockoff, which played the Atari cartridges, but it said Sears on it, not Atari.
Now, see, we had the Intellivision and the ColecoVision, and a friend of ours had the Atari. So like they had the Atari and we had that, and then they also had the Nintendo. Like, so it was kind of like leapfrogging back and forth different console generations.
Yeah, I did upgrade to the ColecoVision mainly because of Donkey Kong.
Now, do you remember the ColecoVision Atom, the computer that had the tape decks on
Yeah.
it? Because that's the one I had. Yeah.
And there is Atom ROMs out there, which I'm still hunting for because I always wanted the Atom. I just could never get my parents to pay for it.
Yeah, with the double cassette there on there, we had BASIC, the programming language BASIC for the computer on cassette deck 1, and you could write your programs and save them on deck 2. It was just oh my god, like that was something that you couldn't do before that. So it is going way back for sure.
Having 2 cassette decks, like you really were getting treated because my Commodore. The first Commodore I had, I didn't have a cassette deck, and the disk drives were too expensive at the time to even convince my parents. When I did finally get a cassette deck for the Commodore, that's when I started doing all that programming with Computes Gazette. And because if you're going to spend 6 hours typing in a game and you can't save it to anything,
that's ridiculous. Yeah,
not worth it.
Now the controllers, like you were saying, is also another interesting aspect of the whole thing to look at the controllers over the years, because like those right there for the Intellivision, it's almost like a paddle with a touchpad. The ColecoVision with the Atom, it was more like it had buttons on the sides, and it was like a joystick knob in the top, but it almost looked like an old dimmer switch as far as the size of like the top of the joystick. It was like a big old thing. So it's just like they've come a long way. And then, with the Atari, it was just a regular stick, and they've come down to the pads for these. I had
tell me you did not get blisters off that Atari joystick.
Of course. And it depended on the game too. Certain games more than others.
Asteroid gave me blisters.
Sure. I mean, when you're going to get serious with Asteroid, if you're just messing around, that's one thing. But if you're going to seriously play, that's different.
Yeah. Oh, I flipped. I actually played it long enough to flip the score in Atari.
There you go. See, you had a lot of time on your hands for that, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, the PC Engine. Some of these emulators. So far, I think I've got all the Nintendos from the original Super NES, Nintendo 64, the Game Boys. I've actually got some of those virtual Game Boy ROMs that we saw last week.
Yeah.
Tucked away in there.
Nice.
They've got the cool thing with this front end is it also supports like Windows ports and other operating system ports if they can be emulated.
Now, I wonder if you wanted something like, do you remember a game like Hexen or something like that going way back, something like that? You can play them now, of course. You could emulate them now, but just having something convenient to collect all the games like that and have them in one thing would be good.
Oh, I just set up my Sega Mega Drive. Another console that I had to go over my friend's house to get to play because my parents were like, "We already bought you an Atari and a ColecoVision. Not getting you a Sega."
No, I don't think I ever had the Mega Drive Sega. I know we did have. This is much later on, but we had a Dreamcast, and it was more when Dreamcast was already old when we got them, but it was just more nostalgic. For the Dreamcast, it was something like Crazy Taxi, and it was a fishing game that was really good, a bass fishing game, which sounds ridiculous, but it was actually a lot of fun. And what else did we play on there? There was like several others. One of my favorites on the emulators was Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. I don't know if you remember.
I remember it.
That was a fun game. Like I never remembered long ago playing it competitively against people and having that much fun. But like a friend of mine, that was their thing. Was like they had that on one of the consoles, and like their thing was at a party. It would just be like, you know, 2 people out of the 15 people in the room would be playing against each other in that game, and it would just, you know, it was a party game in that way. And like everybody was just killing each other in this game. It was just a lot of fun. And it's a silly little game, but it's neat the way that it works. Yeah, the way I'll put it.
Yeah, and it's funny. We were talking earlier about like the fighting games, and I started thinking how many fights broke out over games, whether it was the games themselves that caused the fights or kids fighting to get to play on the console.
Yeah. Luckily, we didn't have a lot of that going on with us, but like I said, sometimes it was the party game thing. Sometimes it was, if it ever was multiple people hanging out, sometimes it was something like Metroid, for example, on the Nintendo. A friend of mine had gotten Metroid and he was stuck in one part and he couldn't get around whatever it was. So like I'm hanging out with him and I'm watching and I'm seeing what he's doing. I'm like, oh, well, let's try this, this, and this. And he's just like, well, here, why don't you do it? And like gives it to me, and like I just start, you know, crushing right through whatever. And he's like, oh, keep going. So like I'm playing the game for him, but it's more, you know, we're playing the game together. So it was, you know, he's playing for a while, I'm playing for a while, and it's more turn.
Sometimes it's easier to figure out what to do when you're watching someone do it.
Exactly.
Than caught in the middle of it.
Right. And the person who's doing it is like, no, but when you hit this, you can't do that.
Oh, do you remember this computer?
Sinclair.
I was surprised that I was surprised they had this in there. The games were you remember before Atari, like the computer games were as simple Hangman kind of games.
Or Pong, that kind of thing. I mean, that's about all you had back then. Yeah.
Oh, this was another console that I was like, yes, I always wanted a Neo Geo, but it came and went so fast that by the time I could have convinced my parents to buy a Neo Geo, Nintendo was starting to come out with the like 64, and you know, you had better options, and they always had a problem with getting good games for the console. It's not enough to have a great console. You got to have great games. Bonk was like the only one that I can remember.
Right. And that would be the trick for sure. Now, PlayStations, I mean, I had the PlayStation 1, the 2, the 3. I never went beyond, I never got to the 5. So, I mean, I'm not there yet. But
yeah, 4 is about as far as the games I've got to experience. The 5, I'm surprised my brother never upgraded to it because he went from the 2 to the 3 to the 4, but he kind of fell off after the 4.
Now, is that when he started doing more the PC games more fully? Because again, when you go from a console like that to PC games and you're actually building really good PCs, then it seems silly to go back to a console other than for specific titles. If there's a title that you can only get on that console, that would be something to bring someone back to it. But once you're in the I'm building my own gaming rig scenario, going back to the console seems like a step backwards to me.
Yeah. And what's cool with these kind of engines, you can still have your powerful PC for when you want to play those PC games.
Oh, yeah.
And you can run this under it.
Yep. I love it.
And the Steam integration, I think, is a big sell for this particular platform, because pretty much all gamers use Steam in one way or another. And this allows you to bring your Steam games into the emulator and bring your emulator games into the Steam.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's a really great approach. So much easier than the last time I tried to do this. You know, it started with my brother asking, can we get every game and set it up upstairs on a like virtual console? Like, you know, he wants an arcade machine. And at the time I knew that I could, but there wasn't this kind of library approach. You basically had to set up each emulator individually, deal with the ROMs, and then the last hurdle with these is the controllers. And every console is a little different because they had different controllers. You've got to kind of map out your controllers so that everything feels seamless, and you're switching consoles, but still comfortable with the controls that you're using.
One thing I will say is dealing with something like that, like I was doing with the Raspberry Pi, working with the control pad where it's just left, right, up, down, and two buttons even. Two buttons and start and select. Like with those kind of a scenario, like you were saying, certain games you couldn't find, or it seems difficult to figure out where like the insert coin button is or the start player one button is. And like once you get those mapped, it's a lot easier. And if you have a controller, a lot of times those are already in the places you would assume they would be. So like since there's only so many options on a controller, it's like default mapped so that this button is coin, and then this button is start, and then
well, and you notice on the menu, this is designed to be run by a controller.
Exactly.
The keyboard's actually more clunky to figure out because it'll show you like which buttons do actions, but it doesn't show you the key versions of them. But you can go into these controller settings here, and it supports up to, I believe, 8 controllers. So the cool thing is that, like, if I've got some games where I want to use a joystick, I can make that the primary controller, and then I can set up a gamepad. I can set the wheel.
The wheel,
Is the one that yes, and I'm a wheel kind of gamer. Like Arkanoid is one of my favorites of all time.
Tempest. Tempest is one of mine. Sure.
Yeah, when you see some of the controllers we're going to be looking at, you're going to see why I'm shooting so high on the budget for the controls. But the good thing is with this software, once I get these controls, I can prioritize them and use all of them.
Yep. And that's a bonus.
Yeah. So let's see what we're going to be looking at tonight. And it's a little bit of the platforms themselves, but it's mostly controller reviews because I'm shopping for them.
Yep. And like I said, controller can make the difference, between a game feeling or, being a smooth experience and being very clunky, as you said, with trying to get it together on the keyboard when it's designed for, to be used for a controller.
Wait till you see the ones I'm looking at. So to start, Retrobird, we're just gonna look at like getting into retro video games, why you might want to, why you might enjoy it, and whether it's something you want to invest heavily in or just kind of try it out because it's not going to be for everybody. But if you grew up on these games like I did, it's kind of hard not to get into.
Exactly. And I always like with the Raspberry Pi, I haven't loaded it up in a while, the one with the video games on it. But whenever I do, I always cycle through like at least 5, 6, 7 games that are always go-tos. And I always find at least 3 or 4 others as I'm looking around, like, oh, I remember that one, and I'll try this one for a couple minutes and whatever. And some of them, you try for a few minutes, and then it's like, oh yeah, I remember why I didn't like this game or whatever. But something like Ghosts and Goblins, I could play for hours, something like that.
Hey, the original Dungeons and Dragons on Atari 2600.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
I've got it.
Adventure.
And then for the second video, these are the front ends I'm talking about. Just Jamie is going to show 5 of the choices, the best choices that are out there. I've looked at 3 of them over on the Windows side. They run under Windows, but I did end up going with Batocera because without the Windows overhead, it runs very smooth. I mean, unless you have a good Windows machine, some of the bigger emulators, the PlayStation 2s, the Xboxes, don't like running on weak machines.
Sure.
So he's going to cover the different choices of front ends that you can use to put together your library.
Very cool.
And for those who don't want to build their own emulation station, the cool thing nowadays is you're going to find these all over Amazon and Temu and other online sites. Some are being sold with the emulator built into the controller or the joystick. Some are like mini PCs that come with controllers. The prices vary, anything from like, $20, $30 for a really simple basic one with some of the older emulators to $300, $400, and it's basically a console, with all the consoles in it, controllers it's a turnkey solution for those who
Yeah.
don't want to deal with any of the setup.
Hmm.
And this one's recent, like, it is in the last 8 months, and he went and bought 10 different ones just to see how they compare with each other.
Nice.
So I like when somebody does the shopping for me, because
Yep. Do the research. Tell us what you
I,
find.
I don't want to buy 10 consoles. I want one. Oh, wait till you see. I had to include this one because I almost forgot. Like, I was going through all the other emulation. I was like, Pinball Machine is the one that, of course, I want in my man cave. And I always knew that this was coming, but it technology had to catch up to be
Yeah.
able to build this kind of virtual pinball machine, and it
Mhm.
simulates 3,500 of the killerest pinball machines out there.
Nice.
So
Gotta love pen.
this guy's going to become my man cave idol.
And that's another one where, again, you were talking about controllers, and that would be one where you'd need something specific to get that pinball feel. Like if you're hitting two keys on your keyboard, it's not quite the same as if you're hitting actual buttons on the sides of the actual thing.
And more importantly, with pinball, tilting and having an actual physical machine that gives you the kind of play that with pinball machines, it wasn't just the flippers. It was sometimes like jogging the machine.
That's cheating.
No, it's part of the game.
If you
You
jog it too
are
hard,
the
if you jog it too hard, then you tilt it, and it's
Well,
it's
yes, and I admit I tilted the pinball machines all the time.
uh, uh, because
Eh,
sometimes it was just a miss. That's all.
Yeah, yeah. And then after we get teased with that virtual pinball, this is where we're going to get into the controllers. And Maximilian, uh, almost all freshy channels tonight. Like, this is new territory for us, so new channels, and this one is going to be one of my go-tos for. He likes to play the fighting games, Street Fighter, and
Sure.
the combat games. So that's his area of expertise. And he got asked, like, does an arcade stick give you an advantage, or do you really need one? A lot of modern gamers, they like their pads and they're more comfortable with them. But there are some benefits to, especially with these retro games, having a controller that's more like the original controller.
Right. It's about what the game is expecting as input from your controller to make the game work properly. If you're putting a brand new controller and it's doing all these different things, and the old controller is just looking for left, left, right, up, down, it might be getting messed up because you're going a little north of west or a little south of east or whatever.
Yeah. And I almost included two videos from, because he does a controller review on. He's getting sponsored by Quanba. Uh, so I had to go check out the site to see like what kind of game sticks they have, because he shows some good ones and their prices, and we're talking 100 to 250, kind of pricey on some of these bigger ones. But considering his reviews, I could see going with something like this if I really was just looking for the joystick feel.
Yeah. And that's the big thing is, it needs to be solid is my main thing. Like, it needs to be able to survive, not that I'm going to play tens of thousands of hours, but it should be built like it's, designed to be played for tens of thousands of hours.
Yeah. And then Maximilian's a stickler for build. That's one thing he pays a lot of attention to.
Yep, exactly.
And then we're going to slide to the real sexy controllers, because these next couple, these are on my shopping list. Arcade One, to start on the massive controllers. He's going to compare the two that are my biggest considerations right now: the Xtension control board versus the X Arcade Tankstick.
Nice. Yeah, yeah.
Both are awesome choices.
The X Arcade's
And
the one I've seen before that I really wanted. Yeah.
yes, and you're going to see the X Arcade is where I'm shying towards. But I went and checked out both of them,
Mhm.
and I'm if Rick really does want to get a stand up, if he really wants to go with the full stand up, and I'm sure he's going to want to do at least a two, possibly a four player.
Sure.
And these guys actually can make consoles and controls for up to four players,
Mhm.
which think Gauntlet, you know.
Yeah. I was thinking Gauntlet. I'm thinking X-Men would be one of the ones that, Wolverine with the claws throwing people out of the screen. That was always one of my favorite moves.
Yep, there's their four-player controller right there. I mean, I'm sure it's not cheap.
You know what I think would be extra cool would be
$550.
about getting two-player machines next to each other and having them linked so that you can play four-player games, but you're actually, two on this machine and two on that machine. Essentially.
What I'd really like to see is internet network playability, so that
Sure.
all four of us could bring up virtual Gauntlet and play from our own computers.
Oh yeah. The technology exists.
Damn, $500. That's right up there with my other consideration, and the other one at 500 is only a two-player controller, but the one advantage it has the wheel.
I was gonna say this one in the middle, is that the wheel or is that the ball?
No, it's got one ball, but no wheel. And at $500, damn it, I want a wheel. And that brings me to the X Arcade.
Yes.
Not this particular model, but their Max, the one hiding over there on the right.
The build quality is what I was looking at here, where it does have it looks like it has that tank feel to it. Like it looks just solid as anything.
And depending on which model you get, like there's some of them that actually come with their own stand, so you can use it sitting down, you can use it standing up. Some of them are also designed to fit right into a game console. So if you did have a stand up and you wanted to use this controller, you can mold it right in there.
Yep.
So he's going to show a comparison between the two and where each has some strengths and some weaknesses. The lack of the wheel is the big buzzkill for me, but these next two coming from X Arcade, because we looked at VR last week, I didn't want to ignore that. Like X controllers, X Arcade has one that's designed for immersive VR, augmented. They've even got a couple of games designed for it, and it makes you feel like you're in a virtual arcade.
Very cool.
But this is the bad boy. This is
the
the
one.
one we're gonna finish with, because I'm gonna find a way to get this in my house.
Is that 8 buttons per side?
8 buttons per side. Each has a wheel, and what you don't see is on the sides of it, there's flippers.
and it's big enough where it actually would feel like you're standing at a pinball machine, essentially.
Yeah. The only thing I would have put the wheel somewheres else, because I can see being like, the way you use the wheel, I could see my palm hitting those buttons below it. I would want the wheel to be
more isolated, kind of like the ball in the middle.
Yeah. I mean,
it's kind of like you need to be the option of either the ball or the wheel in the middle, or have them above and below. But I could see them getting in the way of each other, so you do have to prioritize one over the other, kind of.
Yeah. If you're playing something like Tetris, where you do need to fire and you're doing the wheel, like there's only one button there that's in a good spot. The top right one with the wheel. That's for playing not Tetris.
Tempest.
I
was like, what are you shooting at in Tetris? Like, what am I doing wrong?
Well, it started with a T.
yeah, that's all good.
And
The ball in the middle, though, that's the whether it's Marble Madness would be my go-to for that. But people always talk about track and field as a big one, but I was never like, that's more like, again, party game, or you have multiple people that are competing against each other, track and field. But I wouldn't
well,
get into it as much if it's just me and playing.
the original arcade golf games, I think it was
Oh yeah.
Golden Tee.
Mm-hmm.
You use the
Yeah,
ball to actually like swing and how hard you
I
swung.
could
And
see bowling that way too.
bowling would work awesome with that.
Yeah.
Except for Atari 2600 bowling, which was not real bowling. There's only 3 pins.
You could use it for I was telling you about Shuffle Puck, the one way back when on the Macintosh. It was an air hockey game, and air hockey would work really well with a ball controller like that too, because you want to be able to smoothly go left, right, up, and down, and that would be really responsive in that way.
Yeah, and also Blades of Steel. If you ever played that, when
Nice.
when you're playing when they would fight, like in the middle of the hockey game,
Yeah.
occasionally they would get up and fight.
Yep.
You would use the ball to like punch up or down.
There you go. Take them down.
Yeah. So hopefully by the end of the night, my mind is going to be made up. Knowing there's a 4-player option with these guys,
Yeah.
definitely going to be a consideration for me. But I want that wheel, because if I can't play like my breakout, super breakout, and arachnoid, like,
One thing I would say is that having played, I guess it was Nintendo, like back when they had the gun controller for Duck Hunt and things like that. The controller that they had for the original was an Arkanoid or whatever the game was back then, breakout style game. Just using that little paddle controller for the wheel was fine. Like, it didn't have to be mounted to the big thing. Like, the ball really needs to be mounted like that. You can't have that in like a small controller option.
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah.
you could try to use the mouse that we both use, like the thumb.
I have. I have.
And I know people who use the other version of that has like the bigger marble in the middle. They used it for graphic design so that they could get very precise with what they're trying to do. And they would use that for some of those games and it would work out fine. But I like the mounting in the middle for that, though.
You know what I found ironic when it comes to the paddle is that one of the oldest consoles, the Atari 2600, had the best paddle of any of those consoles throughout the 80s and 90s.
And that's one of my points, is just that, like, you could have either of those controllers that doesn't have the wheel in the middle there, taking the wheel out of the consideration of which one you would buy, and then using just a regular wheel controller as an add-on to be able to use that, where needed for the games where it does. Because it's not that many games, right, that has it. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
You need it to be the right controller for the right game. So it's like trying to play Marble Madness with anything other than that marble in the middle would be no-go.
Playing Marble Madness with the key, because that's one of the first ones I loaded. I was like, oh, I got every game.
Yeah.
Marble.
You can do it, but it's tricky.
I still haven't found Crystal Castle yet.
Sure.
I feel like it's in there somewhere. I just haven't found it. But those 2 games, I can't play without the ball.
Yep. What doesn't feel right. Yeah. Now, one of my go-tos whenever I go into an emulator like that is Elevator Action, because that was one of the old arcade games I used to play all the time, was Elevator Action. That was a lot of fun. And stuff like Rolling Thunder you'll find in there a lot, games like that, side-scrolling.
And you know how I am when it comes to the flight sims. If there's any good flight sims in this, then I might even want to get an additional controller, a flight yoke. I've always wanted a good flight yoke, especially if it could double as a steering wheel, because they kind of work for both situations.
Now, the guy built an awesome solution that we saw the other day. That was ridiculous, that whole setup. But yes, don't go that far this time, okay?
That's the dream driving setup. So to start, we're going to look at how to get into retrobit, not just the software you need or what you need to do, but deciding whether it's something that you're excuse me, gonna want to get into. So with Retrobird here, he kind of covers the opening questions, like, is this something I want to invest heavily in, or is this just something I want to check out? And once you decide that, the videos afterwards, you'll have an easier time deciding, which approach you want to take and how much you might want to spend.
Definitely.
And this one's going to be coming from at Retrobird Gaming.
Mhm.
And another channel that, with everything I'm doing here and setting up, he covers everything.
Nice.
He's looking at all the same things I am. Plus, you don't have to go the PC emulator route. There's actually a lot of portable ones out there. I had some videos that I was going to include just to show them in action. It's like basically having a Game Boy, except you have all these consoles in a Game Boy.
Yep.
Perfect for like long rides.
Exactly. And it all comes down to me, the screen and long rides. The one thing is that motion sickness that we talked about, just being able to, make sure you can separate the motion out here from the motion in the game and don't get yourself sick.
Yeah. Or go blind.
Yeah, no, that'd be bad too. Let's avoid both of those.
So let's see if we're possible retro gamers.
I vote yes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna agree with him by the end.
When it comes to getting into something, people often don't know where to start. Well, here's a start. How about figuring out if you even like it? Seems like a fair enough first step to me. I mean, plenty of people have tried to get into things only to find out they don't actually enjoy them, like Sudoku or working hard. For longtime fans of these older games, the concept of getting into them for the first time might seem kind of weird, because liking these games feels as natural as breathing. You're telling me not everybody lives this way? I mean, I feel like if I stopped breathing or stopped playing video games, either one would be just as effective at stopping me from living. Now, it's only reasonable that not everybody would be that crazy about it, but could still get at least some enjoyment out of it, and especially if you're currently getting no enjoyment out of it because you don't play older games at all. And that, my friends, is where us enthusiasts come in to help you out. There's two main questions we're gonna need to cover: what to play and how to play it. And naturally, this is going to vary from person to person. I mean, if you were recommending a book to read, you couldn't just say, here's a book that everybody will like, or could you? Super Mario World is one of those games that always pops into my head as a game that it seems like darn near every single retro gamer likes. Yeah, it might seem like a bit of an oversimplification, but playing Super Mario World and seeing what you think of it might be a super quick way to figure out, I think I like this sort of thing. A lot of ways to play this game too. It's on the Super Nintendo, the Game Boy Advance, the Super Nintendo Mini, the Wii U, the Nintendo Switch, your microwave, and yeah, depending how you feel about it, you could play it on your computer with an emulator or even a cell phone if you wanted to. I would say though that to give retro games an accurate assessment, you really do need a decent controller. In the case of Super Mario World, an actual Super Nintendo controller would of course be best, but at the very least, some sort of decent controller. I wouldn't suggest touch controls or a keyboard. Okay, but what if you don't like Super Mario World? Is all hope lost for liking retro games? Nope, because as much as it seems like every retro gamer likes that game, there are still some that do not. Well, Super Mario World is a platformer, and this was a pretty dominant genre back then. It wasn't the only genre, and you may not even have to veer very far to find what you like. Perhaps action platformers will do the trick for you. In these games, the emphasis isn't on just jumping, but also attacking enemies, usually with some sort of weapon, a whip, a sword, shurikens, apples. That's a brutal one. Makes me wish there was a game where bananas are a weapon, though. If you can think of any, let me know. However, regardless of which type of game you choose, you're likely going to have to come to terms with games being challenging. Of course, not every single retro game is challenging, but a good chunk of them are, and you're going to be crossing a lot of potential games off your list by ignoring them. Big thing here is to have the right expectations. If you're used to more modern games, you might be used to finishing any game you you want. Not all, but a lot of more modern games can feel like they will make sure you make it to the end, with generous checkpoints, offers to lower the difficulty, whispering sweet nothings into your ear while you sleep. A lot of money was put into some of these games, and they want to make sure you see everything. Meanwhile, retro games just say, hey, screw you, buddy, you can't just waltz through here. But they don't do it to be mean. Well, some would argue they do. But think of it like tough love. You're being pushed to develop the skill to do some pretty cool things. Things that make you feel good. Things you want to tell people about. Oh, well, maybe there's nobody to tell, but that's okay because it's still satisfying for you. I've always thought of progression in modern versus retro games like this. Beating a lot of modern games is more so about having the time to play through them, whereas in retro games it's more about getting good enough at the game to be able to beat it. Although, guess how you get good at them? By playing them, which takes time. So it just depends if the time you spend figuring out how to progress in retro games is enjoyable for you or not. I think a great way to gauge this is how you react to finally making it past a difficult section in a game. Is it just relief and bitterness that it's finally done? Or do you feel joy like it was time well spent? I mean, feeling a little relief is reasonable, sure, but getting through a section of a game shouldn't feel like you just got done with a trip to the DMV. We're supposed to be playing video games for fun. And you know what they always say, if you're not having fun, stop. I would also suggest to not start with some of the harder games. No Ninja Gaiden for beginners. You can't run before you learn to walk. Hey, look at that. Nice and easy. Of course, regardless of what you're playing, if it still feels too challenging, you could make it far less challenging by using something like save states. Essentially a way to create as many checkpoints as you want and wherever you want them. Some people would say that using save states is cheating, but we're not talking about a test you took in high school here. We're talking video games. There's no repercussions for playing a video game how you want to, other than potentially having the time of your life. Question is, how do you use save states? Well, you typically can't use them with original hardware, although, as a small compromise to that, you can sometimes at least enter in a level select code so that you can go back to whichever stage you were on instead of having to go back through the entire game. But basically, any modernized way of playing retro games will have save states. So all the usual suspects, like the mini consoles, Nintendo Switch, using your computer, so on and so forth. You'll often see something like the Raspberry Pi getting recommended as well. And no, we're not talking desserts here, although I'd still recommend that one too. But with the other kind of Raspberry Pi, you can just load whatever games you want onto it and plug it into a modern TV no problem, which some will tell you is simple to set up, but it's not as simple as this. If you're at all familiar with tech, I'd say you may want to consider using something like a Raspberry Pi because of how inexpensive they are. But if you look up a tutorial and it seems over your head, then I'd say probably not. Okay, so I've talked about 2D games already, and specifically platformers and action platformers, being some of the types of games commonly associated with retro gaming. But what else? Well, there's a lot of other stuff, and my suggestion would be to try out whatever it was that piqued your interest in the first place. Typically, if somebody is interested in getting into retro games, it's because they saw something that made them think, hey, that might be something I'd like. Maybe it's even something that somebody remembers from childhood. Heck, that's probably what got most of us into retro gaming, if we ever spent any time away from it. But if you're looking for a relatively risk-free option and you're not wanting to invest much time or money before you can try it out, one additional suggestion I'd have is to see if anybody you know has retro games that'll let you try them out. That way, not only is it a risk-free way of trying them out, but you'll also have somebody right there who can potentially talk you through any questions you may have, or give you information about how to play the game that could be helpful. perhaps even suggest which games to play. Having somebody right there to gauge your reactions to playing whatever it is you're playing in real time makes a big difference. They could even say why it is people like particular games, and I'd say understanding why other people like something can often be useful for figuring out if you might like it yourself. I mean, I didn't understand why people loved bubble wrap until I realized you could pop the bubbles. YouTube can help you out too. Watch videos of people talking about older games and you can get a sense for why it is that they like them so much, whether it's straight up reviews or any number of other things. At least that's what I've found. Passion can be infectious. Also, another thing about getting into retro gaming is that not everybody agrees what qualifies as retro gaming. Some people might think that something like the GameCube is retro, in which case you could probably just play something that feels very similar to more modern games if you wanted to. I would tend to recommend the old light zapper games too, if it weren't for the fact you need to make sure you have the right equipment to play them. I mean, who doesn't enjoy doing this? It was like the Wii Sports of the 80s and 90s. But whatever the case may be, if you're interested in trying out retro games or know somebody who is, give it a shot. You never know, it might just lead to somebody having a new hobby that they love as much as all of us do. As far as collecting goes, well, most people wouldn't recommend it at this point, but remember, you don't have to have a huge collection to spend time playing games and have a great time with it, especially if you're looking to dabble in it more casually as a beginner. But with that, I'm curious what tips all of you might have, or even better, any stories you have of helping somebody get into retro games. For me, I got my brother-in-law, loyal viewer of the channel, to start playing Sega Saturn, and he even did it on the cheap. That makes me feel really good. So with that, leave your comments down below, and I will see ya in the next video.
He's the retro bird, yeah. And he's talking about video games. He's the retro bird, oh yes. And he hopes that you like what he had to say.
Oh, I like his soundtrack.
Yeah.
And he's talking too. He's talking games.
Talking video games. Gotta love it. And, definitely brought a bunch of those, the light zapper, the duck hunt stuff, the everything with the Dreamcast and the Sega stuff, all that stuff.
Well, plus he made a good point with the Super Mario World argument, which I would love a microwave that plays Super Mario, by the way.
Absolutely.
But like, when it comes to those universal games, I was talking the other night, I think with Cole, about like there's certain games that everybody played, and with the NES. Mario Brothers, the Super Mario World, is what came with it. You had to play it.
Pretty much. You had to play it, and it was one of the ones that you could just play for hours. That's one of the things about it.
Right, and it was so monstrous, and like you could play for hours. His point about like these modern games, they really are designed to make sure you get through them. But a lot of the old school ones, it was like, you're not getting through this unless you become an expert.
Yep. And some of the games you would have to, people to get past them, they would actually go buy something at the store, like, information, a book at the store of how to beat a certain video game, and bring that book home and figure out how to play it, but most people wouldn't, and they would just figure out how to do it and do it themselves.
You remember when they started coming out with the 1-900 numbers for like game hints? Nintendo started that.
There you go.
Link, I think, was like the first time that my brother got in trouble for calling that hotline and spending like $100 to get through Legend of Zelda.
Damn. Yep. Exactly. And that's the thing, is some people they just they really want to get through it like that.
Yeah. And the save states, the other thing he mentioned there, that's one of the cool things with these emulator consoles versus the originals. It wasn't until when Nintendo had that USB storage option. What was that? The like Super NES or one of the later ones. They started to have a USB option so you could save.
Wasn't until later, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I know the original NES didn't really have any way to save anything. The level codes was how they did it back then. So you made it this far in Kid Icarus, remember that code. Otherwise, you're gonna have to start all over.
Yep. And do you remember tech support for video game cartridges?
Yeah, good luck.
Blowing it, and now it works.
Yeah, that stopped working when they went to CDs.
Yeah. But with all those cartridges you see right there, that's exactly how you fix them.
And it makes sense with the cartridge-based approach because dust does build up in there.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. We're so old. So that was at Retrobird Gaming over on YouTube.
Yeah.
Good points as to if you're going to try this out and which approach you might want to consider to see whether it's for you.
Oh yeah, and I found out it was for me way back when, and big fan of retro games all along.
It's been for me since my first Atari 2600.
Yep, exactly.
Actually, I even got some of those piece of crap consoles before the Atari 2600 that had like 6 or 7 games, basically Pong.
Sure. We had one at one point that was actually it was like a Mylar thing that you would stick to the TV, and it was just basically a dot going around behind there.
Yeah, I had one of those too. We got it from a tag sale and never got it to work. But I only spent $5 on it.
There you go.
So for our second video, this is at Just Jamie 1983. Hey, that was a good year for games. And another site where like you want to know more about these consoles, the engines, the games, chock full of videos here on everything to do with retro gaming.
Nice.
But here he's going to talk about the front end engines. Like I'm using Batocera on this machine. I've got retrobat. There's retroarch, and there's one more. Those I set up in virtual machines. It's nice. I don't have to mess with my windows. I just basically built them under my windows, and it's a good way to try them out without having to like mess with your system.
Yeah. And again, lots of the retro stuff, the system requirements back when the games were released were so minimal compared to today's that, anything emulating should be very easy.
Yeah, most. When you get to the PlayStation 2, 3 stuff, it doesn't hurt to have a decent NVIDIA card or gaming card.
Once we're getting to that level, yeah.
Yeah, they start to take advantage of some of the video hardware at that point. But like all these classic ones, even that Pi will eat them up and spit them out.
Oh yeah, for sure. Do you remember Metal Slug at all? Metal Slug, like your little cartoon guy and like a tank. You hop in and out of the tank. It's very cartoony, but it was always a fun one. And that was one that you find in these emulators. Take a look for it. You'll find, there's Metal Slug X and Metal Slug this and that. Not right now, but look, at some point.
Is that like got the Earthworm Jim kind of cartoony?
Not quite, but yeah, it could be more along those lines. It's for me, I find it hard to describe, but it's one that you start playing it and you'll find it a lot of fun. It's a good one.
Yeah, I will look for all of them in my library. So here we're going to look at the platforms that you can use to put all these games together. It becomes like the Netflix of consoles.
I like it.
At number 5 we have an easy but overly confused to some users EmuDeck for Windows. Originally designed for Steam Deck, Windows Edition became free to users in late 2023. In terms of aesthetics, it looks great and actually runs Emulation Station. Runs fairly smoothly too. Supported systems range from Nintendo Switch, 3DO, Sega Master System and the C64. Adding games as well as BIOS files is a fairly simple process by dropping files into clearly laid out folders. However, and the reason this is only at number 5, is the fact that the setup process in having to download Steam can be a little confusing to some users. If you do happen to be a regular Steam user though, there's a really nice feature in EmuDeck Windows Edition where you can actually have the ability to add or parse your retro game library into Steam. Some of you might wonder why Batocera is in 4th place. Remember though, this is a top 5 easiest front ends. Let's look at the positives first, and there are plenty of those. Firstly, it doesn't run Windows in the background, and so you will likely get a smooth experience as you are not running so many background processes at the same time, which can inevitably cause slowdown in games and lag. Secondly, it is very simple to use. Adding games is a simple case of pressing the F1 key and dropping games into the ROMs folder and BIOS files into the BIOS folder. Appearance wise, we can simply use Themes Downloader, providing a wide range of different styles which can then be customized too. Batocera mainly uses RetroArch to power your games. However, some systems do require some additional setting up. In some ways, Batocera is very similar to retrobat in looks and operations. It doesn't support TechnoParrot, which can be a deal breaker for some people. Now, the reason I place this at number 4 is simply because flashing Batocera and enter the computer's BIOS menu to boot it can be a little bit confusing for newbies. Apart from that, Batocera is a great and easy front-end system that gets more popular as time goes on. Now, Emulation Station Desktop Edition is a fairly new system and it's extremely promising as well as fully compatible with most retro games that you would expect to find on the front-end emulator system. Very simple to use, it's just a case of downloading it, generating a ROM directory and adding your games into the relevant folders. It is very smooth to run and doesn't feel too heavy on the computer's resources. We can download some very nice themes using its Themes Downloader too. We can also use scraping tools to download artwork and preview videos very easily with Emulation Station Desktop Edition. Emulators can simply be placed into the Emulators folder, which I recommend RetroArch Portable for this, although other systems might require additional emulators too. Mapping out controllers is very simple and straightforward. If you are a user of retrobat, you might reconsider swapping to Emulation Station Desktop Edition at some point, as each update makes this front end better and better, and the team behind Emulation Station Desktop Edition are certainly updating this a hell of a lot at the moment. Check out Emulation Station Desktop Edition. Noslan is a front-end system that you should definitely keep an eye on. It's been around a little while now, and I do think this one could do with some more exposure than it's currently got. It's a little bit underground. When I released a beginner's guide the other day, many said on the video as well as on social media that they have never heard of Noslan before. Currently, Noslan front-end supports around 20 to 25 different systems, but likely those supported systems are for the games and systems that you're actually going to want to play, such as all the popular systems ranging from MAME to Nintendo NES to Sega Mega Drive, PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2, as well as PS3. It is extremely user-friendly in most cases. Simply download it, let it create an EMU folder, and drag and drop your games there. A nice feature with Noslan front end is that it gives us an option to automatically download emulators through the front end itself. Having said that, some emulators will need to be downloaded outside of Noslan, such as my PlayStation 3 setup guide showed a couple of nights back. Look-wise, this emulator looks unique and certainly some nice eye candy to look at too. Once games have been imported, Noslan automatically downloads artwork too. If you aren't so OCD on having every game of every system, Noslan is definitely worth looking at. And here it is. The overall front-end system that is free and easy to use is retrobat. This is a front-end emulator that I have historically covered mostly, although today I have pretty much exhausted those setup guides. Like many front-end systems, retrobat is powered by Emulation Station and mainly uses retroarch to power your games in the background. Like most front ends in this top 5, particular systems will require downloading emulators outside of retrobat. Retrobat is largely pre-configured for you, including retroarch, which is a custom version. Easy to use, such as using the retrobat directory to drop games and BIOS files. It comes with an impressive theme downloader, which is often updated with new retrobat updates. We can customize themes too, add our own music and splash videos very easily inside of retrobat. I do find that sometimes retrobat seems a little heavy on my computer's hardware, and I will mention that Batch UI is a bit of a mess at the moment. Batch UI is a tool that comes with the download where we can mess around with particular settings. All in all, retrobat is definitely a newbie friendly and fairly simple to use, and will appeal to most people interested in front-end systems. Retrobat covers pretty much every console, arcade system and microcomputer known to man, and by far is the most comprehensive in terms of emulation support.
Man, with that soundtrack, I felt like I was playing a game.
Exactly. Soundtrack is important when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah, he's got a cool game theme.
Indeed.
Now that retrobat, he's not wrong. It is a little heavier than some of the other choices, at least the ones I've tried so far. In a virtual machine, it does work. It does respond. When you're cycling through the games, it is a little slower. You can feel the hardware chugging a little bit, but I'd like to try that in a standalone dedicated machine. So this machine here, I might modify it so I can compare the emulation station under retrobat to the batocera boot up.
Yeah.
Which is like lightning fast.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, is especially with, they don't have a lot they have to do with the retro stuff, so it can be very quick on the startup.
Yeah, the good thing is when it comes to setting up the emulators and the games, both of them, they are the easiest solutions. There's a BIOS folder and you don't really have to know much. There's developer packs out there for the emulators. You can get all the emulators already organized in a development pack, perfect for batocera or for retrobat, and you just drop the BIOS folder into the BIOS folder on the game, and all your emulators are up to date.
Nice.
The ROMs are a little trickier. Like when you go into the ROMs folder, you see the different consoles, and you got to kind of figure out, like, this is a PSX game, this is a Nintendo game. Usually when you get your ROMs, you get them all grouped together. So you just drop all the ROMs into the NES folder or the SNES and refresh your game list in your software, and boom, there they are.
Yeah. And that's where having, something in there, excuse me, where it could analyze just the beginning of each of those, just to see what, which console it was for, and have it analyze it and put it in the right place by itself would be a handy addition to something like that.
It would be nice if it could recognize the different ROMs for the different emulators without having to organize them. But considering when you see how many you're dealing with in some of these consoles,
I remember
it's better that they're in their own folder grouped that way, because my game folder would get crazy if it had everything in one folder.
Absolutely. And again, sometimes it would be one title, but it would be, for 5 different consoles and the standalone version and 16 different release dates or whatever. There could be so many different ones.
Yeah. When you're actually looking at the all games view, and you see all your games, you will see like Super Mario, Super Mario, Super Mario. One could be the Japanese version, the other one
Exactly.
could be the English version.
Yep.
They're
Yeah,
all in there.
You'll see a lot of that. Yep. And there may be subtle differences, but for the most part, if you were playing one or the other, you probably wouldn't know.
Yeah. Well, if you are going to set up your own gaming machine, check out these kinds of channels
Yeah.
at Just Jamie 1983. This is where you can start to pick your platform because the batocera approach, I liked it because he was right. When you flash the stick and you do bring it to another machine, you got to go into the BIOS, you got to boot override and not boot to Windows. You want to boot to the USB. Even me, who's very used to doing that, took a couple of times to get this machine to properly boot up. I wanted it to do it automatically. Like eventually this machine's going upstairs and it's going to be a console for the TV. I want to just hit the power button and it's up and running.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I liked about the Pi setup. Also, same idea. It's just right on the memory card. It's just there, so you boot it up and it just goes right to the interface, and you're good.
Yeah, and the Pi is nice because it's real tiny. You put that next to a TV, you're not even going to notice it.
Exactly. Yep.
And speaking of our next video, Dan does game, and he does game because he bought 10 of these systems. You can find these all over the internet. Amazon filled with retro gaming solutions.
Yep.
Your mileage is going to vary. And just a quick disclaimer, the legalities of some of these, like sometimes you will see that vendor go down in a week because it's the ROMs and
the licensing. Yeah.
and the only companies that really are still chasing after them are the ones who still have consoles out there. So, when it comes to like the Nintendos, the Sonys, they're going to aggressively go after ROMs because their consoles are still they still have consoles to go after. Some of the older ones, Sega, I mean, granted, Atari is still a relevant software company, but they're not chasing people who are playing 2600 games to keep them alive.
Right.
And when it comes to this community, especially the retro gaming, it's all about preserving these games because the consoles aren't out there anymore. And some of these stand-up arcade games are impossible to find. So you got to keep the games alive somehow.
Yeah. And to me, it blows my mind that you could run one of those stand-up machines with a Raspberry Pi and have, a million games on it. And it would just be like you're at an arcade and have the entire arcade in the Raspberry Pi in the one stand-up machine.
Well, surprisingly, a lot of those stand-up machines we played as kids didn't have heavy-duty hardware. Today's hardware is like, Pac-Man.
Well, when you look at the size of the ROMs, that's the thing, is the old ROMs, they're super tiny. I mean, they couldn't do much with it. So they had to get very, creative with how they used the space that they had available.
And when you're looking at some of these different solutions, he's going to show ones that are like under a terabyte that have basic consoles, the older ones, small libraries, because the files are tiny. When you get to these 4 terabyte, 8, there's a 12 terabyte monster in the lineup that when you get into the later consoles, the PlayStation 3 and 4, the ROMs start to get like DVD size and bigger.
Yeah, that's the problem is, and again, it's just because of, the progression over the years, it all got, the files get bigger because the graphics get better and, the stories get more involved and the world gets bigger,
The one cool thing with those bigger ROMs, in the old days, you were loading them from the disk on the PlayStation, and there was that wait time as it was like reading from the disks. When you use them this way, that's gone.
Yep. They could build that back in if you want, but
No. I don't want it to feel that realistic.
yeah, we'll skip that part.
So, as you can see on Dan's site, he reviews everything to do with these retro games. Oh, and some NVIDIA reviews, the 5090. I will be back, Dan.
Yeah.
I check out all 5090 reviews.
Excellent.
But here he did the heavy lifting and went and bought 10 different emulation solutions. Some of them are just simple controllers with the machine in them. Others are hard drives that I think there's only one that actually requires a computer because it's basically just a hard drive with the software set up to boot from it.
Right. Very
But
cool.
for those who don't want to build their own box here and just kind of want a turnkey solution, you can find one out there from really cheap to the cost of a PlayStation.
Yeah. That's about right.
Yeah.
These are all plug and play. When you get these, they come with thousands and thousands of games. All you do is take it out of the box, connect your controller to it, depending on if it's a Bluetooth device or if it's one that comes with a wired controller. If it comes with a wired controller, to be honest, some of these are on the lower end side of things. So there are certain ones where you need to, actually go into the settings and adjust some of them, it's called look ahead. Other ones call it latency reduction. For the most part, when you go into the settings, it's going to be common sense what it is that you're actually looking for, because some of these, the Bluetooth connection on them that come with Bluetooth controllers isn't the best. So there is going to be a little bit of a delay between when you push the button and when your character actually jumps on screen. So what you do when that happens is you go into the actual settings of these little consoles and you either adjust the look ahead to a certain amount of milliseconds or seconds, whatever removes that delay from the button to when what you're seeing on screen, or the latency reduction. It is going to be one of those. If it's something else, then again, it's probably just going to be common sense. Now, when the people that are always asking, can I add more games to this? Yes, you're just going to have to go to Google and search up, add more games to whatever. You guys know why I'm saying it that way. So what happens is these come with SD cards or a micro SD card, and some of them have internet. You can literally connect these to the internet and you can use the browser on the actual console itself, and you can do everything that way. But you're going to have to boot into the Android option or Linux option. For the most part, it's either going to be Linux or Android. It's going to be one of those between those. The one that I'm using has Android. I find the sweet spot with these things to be right around 40,000 games. And anything after that, it's just going to be like duplicate heaven. And again, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, because there are certain games like Aladdin, The Lion King, Batman. There's quite a few games. The Super Nintendo is my favorite console of all time. That's the one that I am most familiar with. It is the one that I grew up with. It is the one that I've played the most amount of games with. And it is the one that I've played a lot of. So because of that, I always use that one as an example, because it is the one that I am most knowledgeable about. So when I say that not all of these games are the same, like Lion King, Aladdin, Batman, there can be an Aladdin in America and then an Aladdin in Europe, and they're two totally different games. There can be a Batman in America and then a Batman over in Japan, and they're two totally different games. At this point, most of these have Bluetooth. Most of these have a way for you to connect to your Wi-Fi. Most of these have some option in order for you to, get access to the internet and a browser on them. And if they don't, they all have storage devices in them. And if they don't have storage devices in them, you plug them into your computer and you can browse through the files on them. So there's always going to be a way to either remove games or add games and install new images. Now, when I say new images, quote unquote, these images, I'm pretty sure I might have already explained this to you, but they're just visuals. That's really the difference between these little consoles. If you like a blue theme, You know, you can go to, I use Arcade Punks. That's what I like to use to grab new images for these and just change up the visuals. I don't really need to do that anymore because I've had so many of these and I've gotten so many of them just because I like them. They make great gifts, especially for like, if you know like a friend or family member's like age, like when they were born, and they, you know, like what consoles they grew up with, what types of games they like, you know, these are definitely aimed more so towards an older audience because they're all older games. Am I saying that kids will not enjoy these? Absolutely not. To be honest, kids will probably enjoy them even more because the parent that grew up with these games is going to want to connect with their kid and play these games with their kid, and just, it's going to be fun. It's going to be more fun because you're going to have that connection between you guys where you're playing Super Mario World as Mario and they're playing Super Mario World as Luigi or Prince Peach or whatever her name is, etc. So yes, you can do that with modern games as well, but I think that the nostalgia factor for older people, this includes myself, that's a big factor on why I still play games. That's a big reason that I like video games nowadays. It's why like 90% of the stuff that I'm playing is all indie titles. It's all like these retro themed video games because it has that nostalgia factor. Real quick, just wanted to say that if you would like a PC from me, my Facebook business page is linked down in the description below. I do not charge you anything other than the cost of parts, which I do in fact give you a full list of everything with the final cost before I order it all with my own money. You do not pay me anything until you see the video, the performance, the benchmarks, and all of that kind of stuff. So again, link down in the description below. Fully aware there's going to be a lot of people that are like, yo, this guy made a 10-minute video and never went over the actual retro gaming consoles. I promise you, I ended up doing and explaining all of that for a reason. So this first one right here, this full list of my favorite gaming consoles, retro gaming consoles, will be linked down in the description below for you guys to go and check out. This right here is probably my favorite one because it comes with a ton of video games. Yes, there are going to be some duplicates, but like I said in the video, man, a lot of those are different types of games. The Batman, Aladdin, Lion King, and those examples were the perfect examples. So this right here is probably my favorite one. This full list is from my favorite to my least favorite, although they are all very good. I would not have put them on this list. You got to remember there's hundreds of these things on Amazon. Now you need to keep in mind that this one right here, you need a computer in order to use this thing, but 12 terabytes worth of games. I need you to understand something. This comes with stuff like PS3. This comes with stuff like other newer consoles that I'm not going to say because the literal emulator that is the console that I'm speaking of right now was sued and we have no access to it anymore. You're gonna have to use other ones, but this thing does include it. So yeah, you do need a computer in order to use this thing, and in order to play the newer stuff, you're going to need a decent computer. I sell computers. Link to everything is down in the description below. So if you want a computer from me, I charge you no labor fees whatsoever. I charge you the cost of parts. And yes, I do send you a full list of the price of everything before you pay me a penny. I also do not charge you anything until you actually see the YouTube video, which is how I am able to build the computers free of charge, because I make far more from YouTube and Amazon than I ever would by marking them up a few $100. So yeah, man, this full list will be down in the description below. Again, to everybody that's going to say which one is the best, this is literally in order. Top 10 best well, I have 17, but then again, so I do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like honorable mentions, and then we have 6 right here because this is not a console. You do need a computer for this. So technically it's top 11 retro gaming consoles, but you get my point. It's from best to least. And yes, I know, I'm fully aware we got 300, 300, 300, 300, but please make a note that the first one that I put on this list is $120. It comes with 65,000 games. You're going to be able to run everything. A good majority of the footage you saw was with that one. And yes, I do have 2 different offices. I know everybody's going to be like, yo, this guy's got like 3 different setups. Anyways, link down in the description below for all of those that apparently
Oh, I watched the whole thing.
The whole thing, definitely.
And he got me thinking there, looking at those prices and the different combinations. That 119 one, which hit number one,
Yeah.
comes with two controllers, and I do want to get some good PlayStation like game controllers.
Mhm.
They're going to cost me 25 to 30 bucks a pop for the ones I'm looking at. You take those two controllers, that's $60. That's half the cost of that console.
Mhm.
I'd almost be willing to spend the extra $60 to take care of getting the controllers and having that box as a secondary option instead of having this like desktop next to
Mhm.
the TV.
Yeah. And then the other one he was talking about, like you were saying, the 12 terabytes, for all the newer games. Oof.
That's the other one. For $289, a 12 terabyte is about $180 to $200 on its own, and it's only going to get more expensive given the current state of things. I would be more inclined to buy that because it's a good deal on a 12 terabyte that just happens to come with everything.
Yeah, exactly. And storage is something that I do need. So, I think I might have to look into that.
But that one probably does boot up like batocera.
Yeah.
As an oh no, he said you need well, yes, you need a machine to boot up too, but it's probably booting up straight to the drive.
Sure.
But you can keep dumping more stuff in, and not that I don't know why you would need to at 65,000 games. I've only got 66 or 6,900, and I feel like I've got everything that I wanted.
Oh yeah.
Now I'm just getting gluttonous.
I even had one at one point. Somebody had put together a DOS games project where this was, old games that, before any consoles or whatever, just all computer games. And this is all from, could be computer project, somebody in computer class wrote a project, I'll write a poker game as a project, or I write whatever, they just a hangman game, whatever. They can make any kind of game they want. But this was a project where they had, I want to say it was 6 DVDs worth of DOS games, and DOS games are super tiny. So
one DVD is a lot of DOS games.
DVDs with tens of thousands of games, and it's not just duplicates, but it's also duplicates, and then duplicate titles where you'll have 50 games that all start adventure of whatever, there could be tons of those. But it was just interesting to be able to look at the progression of game design over the years also, because so many of those games never saw the light of day, and you're launching it as like one of the first humans to ever see it, because it's like
and the graphics were like ASCII.
Yeah, exactly like Battlezone, like way back then.
Hey, or you remember the original Star Wars? Those that was a cutting edge for a moment.
It was, for sure. And that's one of the ones I launch also when I go into one of those emulators. I'll look at things like that.
So Dan, I love the information, and knowing that he builds PCs, looks like he knows his gaming PCs. I might peruse his brain on a couple of systems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cole just bought a gaming machine. Well, he didn't just buy it for gaming. He wants to use it for music, but he wanted a machine to go with that MetaQuest,
Sure.
So now he's got a machine. We might be back, Dan. Take a look at some of your box building.
Nice.
Now, I want to talk to this dude, because if I want to make a man cave, he's got the right mentality. I got to have a pinball machine in my man cave. And this is everything I always wanted in a virtual pinball machine.
Nice. Yeah, and like we said, the buttons are important when it comes to pinball.
Well, in this case, also the feel of having a machine and bouncing that ball around.
I still think you hip check the machine too much.
Oh yeah, you had to with some of those old games, those old pinball machines. That ball just wanted to go right down the middle.
Exactly.
So this one's from at a man his cave 9344. He's got a YouTube channel about his cool man cave. You are my idol.
That's the way to do it.
As soon as I can build one, I'm gonna make a channel too.
Right.
And I'm gonna get this.
Hey legends, welcome to A Man in His Cave. Let's get stuck in to our virtual pinball machine, the ultimate addition to any man cave. With different vinyl wraps to choose from, you can have a standout centerpiece in your man cave or games room. And with over 1,300 different tables to play, including the best from Stern, Williams and Bally, you're set for life. The 4K display and killer sound system make every game a blast. Plus, the interface is super easy to use, so you can jump right into the action. Just use the side buttons to navigate the menu to select which pinball table you want to play. We have Virtual Pinball 2, Virtual Pinball 3, Visual Pinball 9, Visual Pinball 10, Leprechaun King, Future Pinball, and even a jukebox. Let's jump into Visual Pinball 10. The Visual Pinball 10 collection has the largest range of remastered mechanical pinball games in virtual pinball format. Let's check some of these tables out. Okay, once we've selected our game, simply load it up with credits using the credit button. Some games require multiple credits, while others only require one. This game requires 3 credits. Then press start. Pull back the plunger, and you're ready to go. As we dive into some of these nostalgic pinball tables, such as Fishtails, you may have fond memories playing multiplayer with friends. With our virtual pinball tables, the experience is no different. To activate multiplayer mode, simply load enough credits for the amount of players you wish to play, and tap the start button with the amount of players you want to include. 2 taps for 2 players, 3 taps for 3 players, and so on. This machine comes with a 4K screen, 10 solenoids, a rumble motor, 5 LED flashes, 2 strobe lights, 2 powerful speakers, and under-cabinet lights. These features allow the virtual pinball machine to give you that authentic mechanical gameplay look, feel, and sound. We understand it can be frustrating to have the rumble motor, LED flashes, and solenoids going all night long, which is why our latest pinballs have the abilities to turn all of these features off with 2 simple switches located at the back. You're also able to turn the volume up or down with the knob inside of the cabinet in the front of the machine. Not only that, but you can now change how powerful your rumble motor is by adjusting the sensitivity on the inside of the machine. When scrolling through our tables, you'll notice there are a lot of tables to get through, and finding your ideal table might take a bit of time. To save time scrolling through, you can use the top flipper to scroll alphabetically rather than one by one. Once you get to your desired table, you can save it to your favorites list to find it easier next time. Let's dive into some gameplay. The controls are as smooth as butter, and the games are seriously addictive. With the real-life ball physics, playing the virtual pinball machine is identical to its mechanical predecessors. Don't just take our word for it. Here's what some of our mates have to say. Many people are attracted to our virtual pinball machines because they offer realistic virtual versions of the nostalgic favourites like the Addams Family, Metallica, Jurassic Park, The Getaway, and many others available on the Visual Pinball 10. What most people don't know is that our premium pinball machines are also equipped with the FX2 and FX3 tables, the latest pinball technology on the market. And these games not only emulate the realistic pinball playing field, but they also utilise a 4K playing screen. This includes playfield fly-throughs, interactive characters, and on-screen point tallying, just like in a video game. Zen Studios have done an incredible job with these tables, making them as immersive as possible. Some crowd favourites include Back to the Future, Family Guy, and Jaws. Another notable mention with our virtual pinballs is the video playback, available on the additional screens. Now this is available for tables associated with major motion pictures, So for example, when you're playing Harry Potter, you can enjoy watching snippets from the movie, adding to the overall experience and atmosphere produced by the table. And guys, sometimes you might not feel like playing one of our various games on our virtual pinball tables, but rather take advantage of our powerful speakers available with the free jukebox feature. Now with this one, you can play over 1,000 different songs, all of which are available with music video playback. So if you're keen to level up your man cave with a virtual pinball machine that boasts a whopping 1,300 tables and has that realistic feel, look no further than a man in his cave.
Don't forget to hit like and subscribe and tap the bell to be notified when we drop a new video. In the meantime, we reckon you'll froth this one.
Oh man, I thought the controller we're gonna look at the end is the sexiest thing in this episode, but dude, that 4K screen, it looks like the machines that they're simulating. I want the KISS 1976 pinball machine.
There you go. And like I was asking about the haptics, how it would be with, you should feel the bounce of the ball as it goes thump, 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 thump.
Well, and then he addressed it with the force feedback, and it can be turned off. I can see how some people would be like, I don't want it.
And the lights. I mean, and the volume. Yeah, all of those are excellent things to bring up, because those are some of the things that would be, for a machine that's designed to be in an arcade, it might already, have everything already cranked up like that and not be adjustable. But the fact that it's all already thought about and, made simple in that way is good.
I'll tell you, given all the pinball options it gives, if I was a bar owner or like ran a pool hall and you want a couple of like consoles around while people are playing pool, drinking, a machine like this could be sucking up $1 like every couple of minutes.
Yeah. And the jukebox feature is another good one there, as far as, if it's got the speakers built in and all. So
yeah, you've got both your jukebox and a pinball machine that can play practically everything. Drunk people will hit that machine up all night.
Yes, indeed. And use it as a coaster. So, watch for that.
Well, yeah. Don't leave your beer on my pretty pinball machine.
they put them on the subwoofers at gigs. So, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Well, that's definitely a man cave toy that would be first on my list.
I like it. It's an excellent choice.
One of those for the pinball experience next to a stand-up that has at least multiplayer, so a couple of people can go play at it. Those are the two things I want in my man arcade.
Yeah. You were mentioning the quarter eater, the initial one, the gauntlet machines, like where you just keep feeding it, like a 4-player gauntlet or the 4-player X-Men games later, like those kinds of things. You could just feed those.
All of those 4-player games were quarter eaters. They were designed for like, dude, you're still in? Okay, let me go change another $1. Exactly. I started using 5s just to make sure I was locked and loaded.
Yep. The old days.
Yeah. That was at Man His Cave 9344, and Man His Cave is cool if he's got that in there.
Yep.
Oh, I'm gonna definitely be back to this channel to see what other ideas he has for that room.
Definitely.
Now, the controllers, this is what I'm in the middle of right now. I need some controllers for my game machine. Now, the keyboard is not sufficient, and the only controller I have at the moment is this old Sidewinder that has the ball in the middle, this weird ass like gamepad. It doesn't cut the mustard, and it doesn't actually have the standard controls that like the PlayStations and the Xboxes would eventually have. This was Microsoft in 1997.
Yeah.
But surprisingly, the controller is recognized. It does work. It just doesn't work good.
Yeah, and that's the thing is with some of those games, using whether it's a D-pad and 2 buttons or whatever, a lot of games you can get by with that depending on how old the games are, but newer games definitely need more buttons and things.
Yeah, and more angle options like
Sure.
the PlayStation approach with the like what is it like the pad plus a 360 joystick
Mhm.
and Xbox did
Yeah.
that too, right?
Well,
Yeah,
in the one case with the PlayStation ones, I think it was the 2 sticks were symmetric. So like the 2 thumbsticks are towards the inside, and then the button feel and the left, right, up, down D-pad were towards the outside. Whereas on
yeah.
the Xbox controller, it was more like the one joystick was here and the other joystick was to the outside. So I never liked the Xbox style as much.
Neither did I.
I liked the PlayStation style. The symmetry was part of what I liked about it.
Yeah, I think PlayStation did a better job of setting a standard
Yeah.
there for modern gamers because most of them want to get controllers like that.
Yep, exactly. And I remember, speaking of the controllers, I remember at one point looking at custom controllers. I don't remember the company. I want to say it was Scuff, but I'm not 100% sure. But they were these custom controllers where you could do additional buttons or like little paddles that were down underneath on basically the fingers that are usually just holding the bottom of the controller. You could get an extra 2 buttons down there to do things like, whether it'll be the X button and the square button together or the diamond and the triangle button together.
Oh, combo. Oh,
Different
damn.
you could
That's
program
good for like, so, yeah.
for the fighting games and things like that. You could have extra buttons for those, and they also had different heights for the thumb sticks, so that you could have different little hats for each of the thumbsticks, so you could make them taller if you wanted them to be more. You could be more precise that way because you're moving your thumb. As you move your thumb, it's actually causing your character to move less, for example. Because
and that kind of combo option
Mhm.
is not only useful for the games with these retro platforms.
Yeah.
There's some of them in order to do menu things. Like there's a few times where you have to hit 2 buttons, like the select and the other button to get to this and
it registers one or the other as you're trying to hit them.
yeah. It's like special situation places where you're setting up the configs and things. Mapping your controller, that becomes a big key when you've got all these different consoles and you need to have basic buttons. If you don't have a select button, then you can't really do anything.
You can't put coins in the machine, so what you gonna do?
And that's another one, like inserting credits, because a lot of these consoles had that. It's non-standard. Like most of the consoles I've tried, it's 5
Yeah,
for
exactly.
the consoles I'm doing. The only reason why I know that is because I had to go Google it. Like, how the hell do I insert a coin?
I think some of the thought there was 1, 2, 3, and 4 were like start 1 player, start 2 player, start 3 player, start 4 player, 5 then being insert coin, and 6 would then be whatever would be beyond that start.
Yeah. Well, the way that the batocera and retrobat, the way they set up the keyboard controls for the interface before you play a game and the default keys, and then once you're in a console and the keys or the buttons in the console, this is why having multiple controllers and like if I am going to play some Nintendo games, I would like to have a Nintendo-like controller so that all the standard buttons that I'm expecting them to be, my select is my select.
Exactly. And it does make the whole thing more more immersive, I guess, in terms of the retro experience, feeling more like it did with the original console, just when the buttons do the right things and things just work and you don't have to deal with a lot of interface stuff in the background. It is helpful.
The reason why people preferred console gaming over PC gaming is console gaming, you just turned it on and it worked. With PC gaming, it's like you turned it on, hooked up your controller, checked the device manager,
looked for updates,
especially with Microsoft controllers.
Sure.
So, what we're going to look at here is whether you're going to go with the gamepad approach or whether you're going to go with the joystick approach. And Maximilian Dude, he's a fighter game enthusiast. Like a big chunk of his channel is all about fighter games, you know, going back to the original fighter games. And he got asked, like, is there an advantage or benefit to going with a stick traditional controller versus, you know, the modern game pads? And I feel he gives an honest, fair balance on both. This is another channel that I will be hitting hard to figure out which controllers. He actually got me looking at some of these alternate controllers for somewhat cheaper options.
Now I remember, was it Karate Champ with 2 joystick fighting game where some moves are like, you know, this joystick goes up and that one goes down, or this one goes left and that one goes right. Like certain things about using 2 joysticks in a game like that were interesting. So even in a setup with like the X Arcade where you've got the buttons and 1 joystick on each side, you could probably configure a game to be able to use the 2 sticks if you want to.
And I think that's why those big controllers are making like 6 to 8 buttons, so that you can basically simulate like a second joystick with all those buttons. Yeah.
But to get the original, you know, to get the real experience, you want both, you know, be able to do the left, right, up, down, all that stuff.
And if I played it in the arcade, I want the same layout. Exactly. I remember arcades weren't confusing. Like you could walk up to a game, throw a quarter in it, and how long did it take you to like figure out how to play track and field?
Yeah, exactly. And that was part of the, you know, the approachability was part of the allure.
Yeah. And then they started coming out with like motorcycles you could sit on.
The jet ski, I always like that one too.
Oh, dude, the jet ski one would.
Jet Moto is one of the ones I would look for in the PlayStation library there. Jet Moto, a lot of fun.
You're going to make me install a Jet Moto in my man cave.
But don't worry, you can turn off the speakers and the lights. So.
Well, if I get the Jet Moto, I'm going to also have to get the motorcycle one because that was my favorite one.
Sure.
Cost $1 to feel like I was riding a fast bike.
I think 2 of the most immersive in terms of the cockpit of where you're sitting games that I'd played. One was a tank game where you would have either 4 or 8 different machines were all connected together and you would have these big tank battles. And the other was a helicopter simulator. That was a very hyper realistic one with all the pedals and the full controls.
I do remember a multi-tank one in my arcade.
It was ridiculous. It was one where when you fire, it's like the whole thing, the speakers go.
Yeah.
That would be, I mean, if I was building a cave, like something like that, like if I, you know, next to the bowling alley and the whatever, you know, like, you know.
Hey, you can't have a bowling alley without arcade games.
Exactly.
That's how my bowling alley was.
Exactly. That's where the elevator action was. As a matter of fact, elevator action, Marble Madness, track and field. They had a couple other machines that would come and go, but like those are the ones that were there for years.
Yeah, the 2 places I would go to for video games, the bowling alley and the movie theater.
I was going to say the pizza place is usually another one. But.
The pizza places were my third because in the pizza place, at least the one I used to go to, he had 2 sit-down tables.
I was going to say, which one would have sit-down tables? Yeah.
Yeah, which like, dude, that sit-down table is mine.
Cocktail tables. That's another one for the cave, like the Miss Pac-Man or the Pac-Man cocktail tables where you're playing from the 2 sides.
Oh man, we're gonna have such a cool cave by the time we're done.
There's not gonna be room for much else, but that's okay. We don't need much else in there.
All right. Well, Maximilian's gonna help us decide whether we're gonna have these game pads or we're gonna go with a control stick. And I feel like I'm gonna end up with both.
Yeah, that's usually my answer. That's my usual answer.
Yes.
Let's go!
Should we get a fight stick as someone new? Oh, that's a great question.
Well, I'll just take this one. I'll take Old Faithful over here. This is the stick I use for everything, Chad, and I've been using it for everything for a very long time. Should you get an arcade stick? or should you stick to controller? Arcade sticks do not give you a statistical advantage. People say they do, right? And I definitely was in the boat in like, you know, the mid 2000s where if you were a pad player, there was definitely a stigma about you, especially if you were into like Street Fighter or 2D games. This very much is a preference. Boil it down into 2 elements on an arcade stick and 2 elements on a controller. The joystick and the buttons. On a controller, you have a D-pad, right? Or an analog stick. And the buttons, the layout of the buttons is technically a bit different because of how they are arranged on an arcade stick. Here's the actual advantage. A controller gets an advantage over here. I'm not using PlayStation 5 controller as a good example. This D-pad sucks. But if you do have a controller with a good D-pad, there is less movement in between pressing these buttons than there is movement of you going in between a stick. There's actually more space that you are occupying here. And some people, their thumb will be able to do these inputs much faster than people will on a stick. So there is a natural, technical, statistical advantage of controller when it comes to the D-pad. However, the buttons are a different case, right? Hitting face buttons and having access to 3 buttons up here and 3 buttons down here really fast is way better than the face buttons on a controller. Here's where the whole thing falls apart. If you are playing any fighting game made past most likely 2006, and honestly the late 90s, Marvel vs. Capcom 2's entire button scheme was changed because of controllers. Most fighting games were getting away from arcade sticks even in the late 90s. So there's a very good chance that your controller is already super accommodating for whatever fighting game mechanics you have. That your controller is actually going to work very well. You don't have to hit all 3 buttons at the same time. You can just map that to a button if you want. Like, a lot of things will be difficult for some players, but there's a really good chance that using a controller for any game that uses a stick is probably just fine. Here's the number 1 reason. The number 1 reason, should I get an arcade stick over a controller? In 2021, Guilty Gear's coming out, there's a KOF on the horizon, there's possibly going to be a new Street Fighter in 30 years. Which one should I be learning how to play a stick right now? And I'm going to tell you guys a personal story and what you're going to be getting into. You've been using this thing for how long? One of these things in its many different forms for how long? A long time. Like, probably many years. You already know how to use this, right? You know where the buttons are. You know if you need to press R2, it's back there. If you press triangle, it's right there. Your hands already have developed a muscle memory to playing games on a pad. When I had to learn how to use an arcade stick, I definitely, for many years of my life, only really played on controllers and very casually on arcade stick. So I had to learn how to play Marvel vs. Capcom back in 1997, 1998 in arcades on a stick because there was no console version. It was only an arcade game. And that was a big issue with fighting games, is that there was no training mode and there was no home version of these games. So if I loved the game and I loved the characters, which I did, I had a reason to play, I spent all my extra money that I ever had as like a very young teenager learning how to play on a stick. And guess what I was doing? Oh, missed. God, wrong button. You have like no muscle memory. You have no idea where anything is. Or even like, how do you hold this fucking thing? Do I hold it like a wine glass? Do I touch it like it's a sexual object? You have no idea what to do with an arcade stick. And you'll have to develop an entire set of muscle memory based on this thing that you have not used at all. It's like playing baseball your whole life and suddenly you have to go play soccer. Well, shit. So what are you doing to yourself if you're like, I just want to use a stick? You're essentially restarting from zero. That's it. Even if you're decent at fighting games, like even if you are like have a basic understanding of how they work, but you've only ever played on pad, you are starting back at zero because you have to now relearn everything of where the fuck your hands go. The biggest reason why this thing is my preferred way to play almost every fighting game except NRS games, because I just play NRS games on controller, because I hate the cross layout. Legacy. That's honestly it. This represents a time of video games that many people hold near and dear. Arcade sticks represent the arcade era. Represents where there was a control scheme that only people in arcades could share with each other. And this was the only way to do it. There's also one big thing that differentiates arcade sticks from controllers. What are you doing when you're using a controller? You're using just about this, right? Maybe you're doing some of this, but it's essentially finger action, right? Finger action video games. When you're using an arcade stick, you're using your whole fucking arm to press these buttons. You're using your wrist, and every other aspect of your fiber and being is going into moving this shit. And if you're playing this with some American bat stick, then your forearm is probably some Popeye shit. Arcade sticks require a lot of kinetic movement. They require a lot of energy that goes into them. The legacy arcade sticks comes from arcades where people would beat these controllers up so much that you had to fucking move that shit. If you wanted to like mash buttons or anything like that, people's hands would be bleeding. I'm not fucking shitting you. These soft, wonderful buttons that are like, oh, they're so touchy. It's like, oh, you're just doing mashing buttons. Oh, it's wonderful. I got max damage super. If you wanted to hit max damage storm super in Marvel 2, the buttons weren't like this. They were concave. So they had edges, motherfucker. They would catch your finger in between and people would be bleeding on arcade sticks. I'm not fucking shitting you. People would like break an aspect, a callus on their hand, mashing Storm Super or some shit. A lot of movement involved. There's a lot of like crazy legacy involved with arcade sticks. And that's something that's super near and dear to me. That's like something that I have literally fashioned every single thing that I make and fabricate, right, on the internet. That's like the whole thing. So to me, this represents like a time long past. Arcades aren't really much of a thing anymore unless people are really specifically trying to preserve them. And this is specifically catering towards a very specific group of individuals that want to keep that era going in some way. That's what an arcade stick is. So the long story short, should you get into a stick? If you want to get better at the game, hell no. No. If you actually want to get better at a game, you might want to look into what a hitbox is, which is a whole other can of worms, but a hitbox might actually give you a bit better of an advantage in a situation where the skill to learn a hitbox, which is essentially like keyboard typing, right, is a bit higher. Right? It'll take a little bit longer to figure out how to get good at that shit if you're not used to that. But when it comes to stick versus controller, there's no advantage. There's some things that stick do better than controllers, and there's something that some controllers do better than sticks. That's just the way it is. The big difference now is that if you want to get good at a stick, you want to play your fighting games with gusto. That's pretty much it. You just want to play fighting games the way they were played back in the 90s and shit.
Dude, that's the most positive fighting game theme I've heard yet.
I like it. Very solid. And yes, I understand the experience there, and the buttons with concave edges and all that. Yeah, never bled on any arcade machines, but I can see that.
I have, Max. I have left blood on game consoles. Blisters playing for so long that like.
As far as the durability of the arcade machines, the track and field is the one that I saw take the most punishment, because people would just whack the heck out of that machine trying to run fast.
Yeah, that really tested buttons.
The ball, it was like you're trying to crazy.
Yeah, see, it was the left right when they were
Parables
like
or whatever,
racing, and then you had to do the jump, so it was like two buttons and then jump. I should be a good drummer.
Exactly. Timing is everything. Very cool. Maximilian.
Yes, awesome channel. As far as controllers go, I like his advice. It was balanced. He's not wrong that a lot of people who prefer those stick approaches, I'm one of them. That's what I grew up on. I never got into the consoles. I got out of video games in the 90s, and that's where the games were getting designed for the pads.
Yeah. Well, one of the points about that is not only the distance that needs to be moved, but with it being a D-pad, left is just left, right is just right, up is just up, down is just down. With the stick, there's a little bit, like you're not always, if you're trying to go left on a stick, you're not going to always get it just left all the time. You're going to go left and a little up, left and a little down. And if you're doing left and a little down, you're doing a defense move. You're going left and a little up, you're jumping backwards.
Which can make sense in a fighting game, and that's probably why he prefers them in that situation.
But that's one of those things where if you're trying to play on, a controller that has the D-pad, it's much easier to, like, you're trying to go left, go straight away from your opponent and do a defense thing. You don't end up crouching or jumping accidentally, where if you're trying to do it with a stick, you'll do a lot of that accidentally while you're trying to teach yourself to play on the stick, because of the fact that there is that diagonal aspect to what you're doing.
And it could be why a lot of the modern console fighting games are pad, like you kind of need a pad for some of the modern console fighting.
Yeah, for sure. And the buttons, lots of buttons.
And one thing I noticed, when you're playing with a pad, it's thumb centric. Like your thumbs are doing all the heavy lifting in the front, while you've got your fingers in the back doing the back buttons. With the stick, he's right. You use your whole hand, especially with the multi buttons. The joystick, whether you palm it or whether you cup it, like some games, I'd be playing this way, with a fist on top of the ball. Other games, I'd be playing with my thumb index kind of controlling it.
Sure. What about Golden Axe? What are you doing there?
With the side kind of scrollers, I'd be doing this to go left and right. When you have to move around, when games that you're moving up, down, left, right, the top-down approach on the controller makes more sense. But if you're going left and right, you're pretty much controlling it like a hook.
Sure. This way or that way.
And that's how you get the blisters. You do that for 12 hours straight. It's like, damn, my thumb's about to fall off.
You still have quarters left after 12 hours. Loaded for bear.
Yeah, I didn't have to pay quarters when I got a console.
True. But to stick with a console, that was different kind of controllers. Or like we were saying, the ColecoVision, stick on top, for example, different thing.
You had to spend a lot more quarters to get the console.
Yep.
Long-term game commitment.
Exactly.
I've got this console. I'm gonna play it. And that Atari got its money's worth.
Oh yeah, get your mileage out of those consoles back then for sure.
So, at Maximilian_dude.
Nice.
I love the controller advice. He's going to be one of my senseis. Lead me to the controller that I need.
Oh, yeah.
And I do need the pad, and I do need the stick. I want both.
Yeah, different scenarios, yeah.
Yeah, well, he explained why both are a benefit.
Yeah. And we already discussed the fact that you need the wheel as well. So that's just non-negotiable.
I have high demands, and these last couple of videos are going to show it, because these controllers are not cheap, but for the experience I want to have across consoles over decades, gonna need all these controls.
Oh yeah, get them all built in so you don't have to worry about finding more.
Yeah, and the pinball kind of came in. I hadn't even thought about that, but when I started seeing it as a feature of some of these controls, the side pinball flipper buttons.
Yeah, that's a big
totally into that idea.
Yes, very much so.
This one's going to be from Arcade-1. Yep, at Arcade1. He got the name. Good man. Yeah, on YouTube, and he looks like a retro geek just like me.
All right. One of us.
Yeah, and then he gets into wiring and all this stuff is what I've been exploring, the accessories and the setup. Like I want to have that ready to go, reliable console.
Yep.
With everything.
Nice.
So he's comparing the two that are high up in my consideration. These guys at Rec Room Masters, their controllers, the fact that they got a 4-way is actually making me shy back in this direction. It's not cheap, but it does support 4 people. Like if I want to play Gauntlet, that's the controller I'm going to need.
I remember trying to play Gauntlet on the emulator with 4 people playing on the keyboard. So each person has to have, okay, this one's WASD, this one's going to be FGTH, this one's going to be IJKL.
That's like 4 people trying to play on the same guitar neck.
Exactly.
You can do it, but
is it really necessary?
Yeah. So I love this choice here from these guys, but it's missing the wheel, which
that's a deal breaker.
These guys do have options for the wheel.
We just got to find you a good wheel just by itself. And then
if I can find a good wife, she'll come with a wheel.
That's the way that works.
I've got the ball.
That's usually a requirement.
So he's going to show the benefits of both solutions here. Both of these companies are the kings of controls, but your options vary with them.
And again, the solid look and feel of those, the chunky, boxes. To me, that looks like it's built like a tank, and that's the important thing with controls. So you're going to be mangling like that for sure.
Yeah. And these guys, it's all about the durability and those old arcade machines took a beating for
for sure.
All right, let's see which way he goes here.
Hey, what's up guys? Today we're going to be taking a look at the Xtension Emulation Edition controller from Rec Room Masters, which you can see right here, and the X Arcade Tankstick from X Gaming, which is this one right here. So the build quality is excellent on both of these. The texture finish of the X Arcade is very nice, and the plexiglass on the Xtension controller is also very nice. And if you're gonna get custom artwork like this one has, it keeps it nice and protected so it doesn't fade out over time. If you were gonna get custom artwork on the X Arcade, you definitely wanna have it laminated so that it doesn't get faded while your hands are resting on it. What I will say about the Tankstick is that to me it feels like it was meant to be on a tabletop. The base looks a lot more finished and clean, whereas the Rec Room Masters Xtension, it's a little bit unfinished looking, and it does not include rubber feet like the Tankstick on the bottom of the base. As for button layout, you can see that they both have 8 buttons per player. However, on the Tankstick, I really only counted as 6 buttons because the bottom 2 of each player are used for admin buttons, like to go in and out of games and things like that. And on the Xtension controller, you have dedicated admin buttons on the top, which is also a nice feature to have them away from the usual playing buttons. That way you don't press one of the buttons by mistake while you're playing. Now the X Arcade Tankstick has 2 cables that come out of the back. One is for the trackball and one is for the regular buttons. The Xtension only has 1 cable, so it's definitely cleaner. If this is going to be sitting out, you're going to have a lot less cables running out of the back of this controller than you will from the Tankstick. They both include a trackball, and the quality of trackball on both is very nice. The only difference is that the Xtension has a bit of a lip around it, so if you rub your finger on it, you can see you bump into it, whereas the X Arcade trackball does not have that. It's nice and flush with the body of the actual controller, so I think that's a little bit nicer, but it's not a huge deal. Another nice feature of the Xtension controller is the top admin buttons light up. They're LED buttons, so you could turn them on and off using this switch right here. Now, one thing I like a little bit better on the Tankstick is it has these side buttons on the left and the right for your flippers for pinball games. The extension does not have that. Just the way the base is it goes in too far and you can't put buttons there. So what I do for that is I just program the left and right flipper usually to some of these buttons on the bottom here. Now as far as functionality, the extension controller is the best choice in my opinion, because you can have it flash profiles to the board that's inside here on the fly. And what I mean by that is you can launch a game on the computer and it automatically will reconfigure itself. If you have a profile configured for that game, it would automatically reconfigure itself to certain keys, right, to match the inputs of that game. You cannot do that with the Tankstick. What you can do with the Tankstick is you can have different programming modes. In the back here you have a switch that allows you to have 3 different programming modes, and each programming mode could have, again, a set of inputs for certain games or certain systems, but you have to manually switch to that when you launch that system, whereas over here is automatic. And also you can only have, like I said, 3 modes that are programmable on the Tankstick. The extension has unlimited amounts of profiles or modes that you can have programmed to this. So that is a big plus to getting the extension controller over the Tankstick. Alright guys, I think that about covers the main features and differences between both of these controllers. At the end of the day, you can't go wrong with either one. They are both excellent. They both have excellent build qualities. So just to recap, the extension is a little bit nicer when it comes to the button layout, because you have the dedicated admin buttons at the top to enter and exit games and things like that. And it keeps them away from the playing buttons so that you don't accidentally press those buttons while you're playing. It also is a bit bigger, so if size is an issue for you and you need something smaller, you might want to stick to the Tankstick. So I hope that was helpful for you guys. Again, you can't go wrong with either one of these, and if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
Oh, he.
Now you
Okay.
need. Now you need.
Well, yes, that's what I was thinking. My man cave needs to have 2 stand-ups, one with each controller. Each controller does have some cool advantages. I swear he's kind of shifting me over to the extension.
I will say that I really did like the build quality look on the, like, the feet and everything else with the Tankstick does look more solid, more put together, but you could probably adjust the other one to make it, you know, more solid like that, feeling more solid like that, because I don't want it sliding around on the tabletop, right? If it's
Yeah, where I would incorporate this, because I thought about it a couple of ways. Like a stand-up, I do want to make a great stand. He wants that.
It's mounted right in it, and it's not a problem. Yeah.
But it's nice if you can also take the controller, go sit down in the chair on the giant screen, and put it on your lap, or put it in front of you, and it's stable.
Yeah, exactly. Stability is important, and that's why the size of both of those, like, you know, being that it is, you know, all the way across, it's got, you know, 8 buttons per side, 2 joysticks, the ball in the middle, the whole thing, it looks very solid and would be, you know, solid on your legs if you did have it there and you wanted to just, you know, use it.
But you noticed it was missing some key things that, like, the wheel is such an important one.
Tony's wheel. We're gonna call it Tony's wheel from now on.
Well, it's you eliminate certain games without that wheel, and some of us, it's our favorite games. I love my wheel games.
Now, to me, also, you're never going to find a wheel like the ones on the Tempest stand-up machine. Like if the X Arcade made one where it would be in the middle where that ball is, and it's because when you go to spin that wheel, like at the end of the level when you start zooming down, you spin that wheel, you're supposed to go around the whole thing. That wheel had to have the momentum when you spun it.
For Tempest, yes. Yeah. Tempest had a weighted wheel, which was cool. It was like, wow, this really makes it feel realistic.
That's what I'm saying. It's like if I was going to get a wheel controller at home, it would be something like that, where it's got that feel.
That I would want that if I'm playing Tempest. If I'm playing Breakout, the Atari paddle
It was good enough, yeah.
If somebody has like a Atari paddles with USB, hook a brother up.
Matter of fact, it wouldn't surprise me to see that as one of, you know, the type of things they would have in those all-in-one units, but like where they had the Atari controller stick. But there's only so many games that use the paddle, so I don't know if they would have a whole set of paddle games that are just inside the paddles.
I have the paddle games. I need the paddle.
Right.
USB paddle, old school Atari, great controller ahead of its time.
I'll tell you what, you could probably find some kind of an audio controller where it's just a volume.
I thought of that. If I use my Oxygen little MIDI controller, I could use the wheel on it, but I'd probably wear it out playing something like Tempest.
It'd be worth investigating, though, right?
Any controller options, I'm on the hunt, and that was an awesome comparison.
He brought up several things I didn't think about in both cases.
Well, the admin buttons, it's one of the things that's pissing me off when it comes to general controls that you need to know versus bringing up system menus for the front end.
Sure.
And you don't want those buttons mixed in with your other buttons you're stomping on.
Exactly.
Good stuff at Arcade One. I'll be back. I'm in the middle of this rabbit hole and I'm not going away.
Custom arcade machines.
And you know, last week when we were looking at the VR stuff and looking at all this retro games where you don't think VR because it wasn't there, but VR is being incorporated into retro games, and with the MetaQuest, this solution here is one approach where you're doing the VR stuff, but imagine walking around in a virtual arcade back in the 80s.
Sure.
And you're walking up to this game and a physical controller in front of you with your headset is now ready for you to play that game.
Nice.
And this is coming from the X Arcade choices. They've got a bunch of different products. I think this is the one. The VR one ties into their TV controller. It's a stand up, put in your living room, comes with its own like stand. You can sit at the couch and put this controller in front of you.
Very cool.
It's not as cool as the Tankstick. It doesn't have the wheel. So I'm not getting that one. But if I was doing VR, I might consider this one because it's ready to hook straight to the MetaQuest.
Nice.
What is up, my gooselings? Today we're going to be talking about something that I didn't think was completely possible in virtual reality until just recently. I'm talking about the Arcade 2 TV X Arm from X Arcade. Long name, but very freaking cool. I do want to say that I was gifted this product by the company. The machine is pretty much self-explanatory. We got the classic arcade buttons, the authentic joysticks, options for 1 or 2 players, as well as a touchscreen to choose from multiple options, a trackball, and a sick RGB sign. But what does that all have to do with the VR? This thing supports consoles and computers, but it's also compatible with the Quest. By plugging this Bluetooth device, very small, right here where the USB-C is, it will automatically pair the two devices together. X Arcade made a VR game specifically just so you can play it on the XR machine. My favorite way of playing it was with mixed reality, but there are VR worlds. Now, this is straight up my opinion, my honest opinion. Firstly, I genuinely felt as if I had an arcade machine in my house. The immersion was legit. This was like a nostalgia lane for me, playing some old arcade games. Not only that, you could play games from the SNES, PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, Wii. Well, you get it. There's a bunch of options in consoles that this thing supports. And if I wasn't feeling like I liked the height, I can easily lower it down. So I put 2 controllers down, and now it kind of aligns with the mixed reality. Oh, that is so weird. This used to be, oh, no you didn't, bro. Now, when growing up, this was by far my favorite Mario. There you go. Let's put some equipment here. When I put these two controllers here, press these two buttons, the machine will move over here and be placed pretty close to what this is. We built two machines now. Literally where it is, perfectly placed. Super low latency. That's what I used to play as a kid. I can't even, this game used to be so hard for me. Come at me, bro. So that's the Arcade 2 TV XR. What do you think about this product? If you are interested in this product, please be sure to click on my description where you can find all the links to the X Arcade website. It's been real, Valty out.
Oh, Valty is
Come at me, bro.
cool.
Come at me, bro. Big sneezes.
Oh, Valty is playing around with the VR games, especially if bringing up the retro with this kind of console. W- Put it. I
The mixed
didn't
reality.
realize
Yeah.
putting the controllers up like that, and then now all of a sudden you're stabilized in front of your virtual controller. That's a physical controller. That's what I want.
Sold.
Well, yes, because the goggles let you see the game screen on top of like what you're playing. That's what's making virtual reality like so cool. I am in an arcade back in the 80s.
Yep. Very cool. Mixed reality stuff.
Yeah, a lot of what makes these retro games and the ability to play them now is it's like the sense of smell. You know how it's so powerful that like grandma's cookies. I'm 10 years old again.
Yep.
With retro gaming, getting the right control and getting the right game. Shit, give me a virtual quarter. I want to feel the quarter in my Oculus.
There you go. Now, don't put a quarter in your Oculus. That's a bad idea.
It'd be funny if they made a virtual game where you gotta get money from your parents. You gotta go home, convince your parents, like
You got to do some chores. Take out the trash. Clean up the
yeah,
garden.
well, and if the parents don't give you any, then you go down into the basement to the washer and see if there's any quarters, like, because that's how I funded my early video game addiction.
Nice. It's the way to do it.
So if I do manage to get one of those MetaQuests or Cole, I'll get Cole to go down this rabbit hole.
There you go. The controllers.
Yep, that was at Vaulty VR.
Yep.
Definitely having fun with his MetaQuest.
Definitely. Come at me, bro.
Now for this is the one because I'm getting this controller no matter what. Yeah, he helped to convince me that I might want multiple ones for different rooms, but this one has the wheel.
Nice.
And the type of wheel that you can play the classics with.
So more of a breakout style, not as much of a Tempest style, right? As far as the momentum.
Well, it does have it looks weightier like the Tempest. I'm assuming it's plastic. The thing with the Tempest one, there was metal to it. That's why
it was heavy. Yeah.
And it spun. Like you could fucking let it go.
That was the thing to do.
Yeah. The one thing I don't like, just from the picture, where the wheel is being above the buttons, and your arm. If you're playing Tempest, you're gonna want to rest your arm right where those buttons are.
I think the buttons would be inactive during the game, but I'm not sure.
That would be one way to avoid problems. But if they're those admin buttons, the bottom two, now that I saw that other video, I don't like that those bottom two are system buttons because I don't want to hit those like when I'm in the middle of the banging.
Yeah, no, I could see that being an issue. We'd have to see. Maybe you'd have it where, you have the admin buttons only active on the player 2 side while you're playing on the player 1 side, for example, so that, they're inactive, but you can get to the controls you need to over there.
Yeah, it's kind of like the master, the control 1 always had the control in the early days.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Same
Let's see what this bad boy does, because probably going to be buying one in the next couple months.
Do it.
Welcome back to the channel, guys. Tonight I got a special treat for you. We got the Xarcade Tankstick Max. And I want to show you what it's all about. I'm going to do an unboxing, do a gameplay, let you check out some of the new features. I'm really excited to see what this new thing can do. Let's dive into it. Let's open it up. Alright. What's in the box? Alright, so what's included? So far we have, let's see, which one is this one? Okay, this is the DB9 to USB and purple colored PS2 connector. Okay, what else? We have a DB9 to DB9, looks like serial extender here. Very cool. And let's get this bad boy out. And of course the instruction manual. And an Allen wrench this time. I am curious about what that's about. Probably to loosen the spinners. I'm not sure. We'll see. So, how does it feel? Feels the same. Very fast. Oh yeah, that is nice. Still comes with the standard 6-button layout with the 2 additional buttons on the 3rd row. There is a new power LED light button here, which we're going to read about in a minute. And now, of course, the new spinners. Ooh, that is, wow. I mean, look at that. They just keep going. That is cool. A lot of games actually use spinners, and this is really cool that they're bringing these out. And a lot of people have had to add these as aftermarket. So the Xarcade guys decided, hey, we're going to come out with the Max, and we're going to add spinners for you. That is really cool. So this opens up the doors for a lot of different games to play that you couldn't play before. Like I said, Tempest is a really good one. Arkanoid, there's a bunch. There's that one for the Atari one, I can't think of it right now. It's Warlord, I think. That one's a 4-player one. So if you have 2 tank sticks, you could probably do this. My first question is, does the spinner come off of the trackball USB, or does it come off of the joystick USB? That's my question. But yeah, very clean, very nice, powered by X Gaming. You get the Xarcade logo, very iconic, very nice. Everything matches. The color scheme is great. The gray and black with a touch of red, very nice. These trackballs, the spinners, I like these a lot. Now, if you notice, you probably can't see it on the camera, but they have these little holes here, and that's where your Allen wrench will come into play. The Allen wrench will allow you to, there it is, loosen these so that you can take them off. And this button here is a new one that allows you to set it to power or reset or whatever you like. We'll read up more on that in just a minute though. Joysticks, classic. I think these are still the, yep, these are still the 4-gate. Okay, so 4-gate standard joysticks here with a bat top, black bat top. Alright, now on the back of the controller, we'll start from my right to left. We have the input, which is where you're going to plug in your other cable here. Oops, not that one. This one here, and this will allow you to hook up on the other end, either PS2 or USB into... Alright, the other thing that you'll notice is that on the Tankstick now, there are 4 positions, and these are for the modes. So you have the keyboard mode, programmable mode, X input, and then direct input. So all the new Tanksticks come with the zero lag tri-mode board. Very cool. So that allows you to use keyboard mode or X input or direct input. So you can play this on your PC. I've even played it on my Switch. It allows you to be compatible with just about anything with those different modes. And then this is actually called your horizontal disabler. So what that does is when you're playing trackball games, if you hold it and you spin the trackball, if you go off a little bit to the right or a little bit to the left as you're doing it, if you're holding this button, it only counts the Y-axis, not the X, so it won't even read it. Pretty cool. Really good for golf games. And of course, this one is your trackball USB and PS2 connection. Should be for it. They used to be for the programming. I do like the fact that Xarcade does a really good instruction manual. I mean, they cover pretty much everything here. So they give you what's included in the kit, which I showed you, of course. You know, how to connect it, what all the different buttons are, horizontal disabler, programming, the Xarcade Tankstick features, of course. You know what's not listed on here, guys, is the spinner. So I think you put the old, you know, instruction manual in there, but I forgive you. You guys are still great. And on the next page, it talks about the operation with how to set it up to a computer, using the horizontal disabler, of course, how to run this with emulators, setting up with MAME, using it with MAME, you know, the button layout here with choosing a game, exiting a game. They even have a link for free games on their website there. If you want to actually program the Xarcade, it'll tell you how to do that. You will need a PS2 keyboard when you do that, and they give you instructions on how to do that. If you do want to connect these up to a console, I have the adapters to hook it up to my Wii, but you can hook these up to, I think it's PS2, of course, Xbox, the Wii, Dreamcast, PlayStation 1, I might be missing a couple guys, but go to the website and they'll tell you exactly which ones they have adapters for. And then operation with the game consoles, even digital and analog controls, you can set this up so that you can use the 2 joysticks, you know, as your dual sticks, which is very cool. I like that. And then when you do hook it up to a console, PlayStation 1 and 2, oh yeah, GameCube, Xbox, Dreamcast, it gives you the button layouts for that console. Then on the very back, you have the trackball and how to set it up. It's pretty much standard. It's a USB cable, and if you want to use a mouse to console adapter, you can do that and purchase that on their website as well. And then if you have issues, they have a troubleshooting section, which is very cool, and how to maintain it and clean it. And that's about it. Alright, welcome to the game room. You can't really see me, but that's okay. We are going to try Arkanoid first. This button is actually mouse button 3. So with mouse button 3, you can set this up however you want. Nice.
So here's some final thoughts I have on the new Tankstick Max. I mean, overall, I'm very impressed with what they've done with the Max over the previous model because it gives so much more functionality and opens up a lot more games to play for everyone in the gaming community, and that's a great thing. The new M3 LED button was greatly needed, and it's a nice addition to the Max. I mean, it's so much easier to use this button for opening up menus in Emulation Station or exiting games with MAME, for example. But just having the ability to use it as an extra button for whatever you need is why I like it. Speaking of which, I talked to the Xarcade guys, and they plan on releasing a RetroPie script so that you can toggle the trackball or the spinners to be active. This really helps users that are trying to minimize the number of devices that are present to the emulator, so it's a lot more easier to use an interface and set up your controls. I was having issues with my Pi 4 lately, so I wasn't able to test this, and all of my testing was done on my PC. But I did not have any issues, switching from like Missile Command, which required a trackball, over to Warlords. It was very smooth, and there were no problems. This might be useful in some RetroArch setups specifically, because what they did is they consolidated the trackball and the spinners into one USB hub that then outputs to one USB cable. So this is also nice because it limits the number of devices and the number of cables required for the Tankstick Max. You don't need an additional one just for the spinners. Speaking of spinners, they are definitely the crown jewel of the Max. They're a great addition. I can finally play Warlords and Tempest and Arkanoid properly. My one complaint is that the spinners are a little bit of an awkward spot, as you saw in my grading. So the buttons on your pressing hand is almost directly behind the spinner instead of next to it. Neither of these are really huge problems, and they don't make the games unplayable at all. I had a lot of fun, but just something to note. Also remember, the spinners are on a single mouse device. This is also interesting design. And when I spoke to the Xarcade devs, they said this is also to minimize the number of devices that your system has to keep track of, and that has to be powered up as well. So overall, I am very happy with the Tankstick Max. These two major additions will be very appreciated by gamers, and as expected, it is a quality product, as over the years, I've used my original Tankstick at least 2 or 3 times per month for several hours, and as well with all my friends on the quarterly tournaments, not to mention my nieces and nephews gaming on it as well, and it is held up to the beatings like a tank. So I have no doubt that the Max will be lasting for many years in my household to come as well. So now you know what to expect when you get a Tankstick Max. So go ahead and drop a comment below, let me know what you think, or if you plan on getting one and when. I will see you on the next video, and thank you for watching.
Oh, that was Robotron, right?
I think so. Yeah. We were saying Robotron, Berserk. There were a couple different ones that were like that, but I love those for sure. And I was thinking Karate Champ was the other one, the 2-stick game that I was thinking about.
Yeah,
Good stuff there.
the Berserk, I think that I was, because Robotron and Berserk both came out around the same time, had that like dual joystick aiming. I was like, whoa, I
Yep.
can aim with one hand and
Running
move
that
with
way.
the other.
And which one? Tron with the light cycles, and the Tron at one point there's you have to move the arm, so it needed the wheel for like to shoot like over that way or whatever. You could use the spinner for that, so that would be kind of cool.
Tron was one of those games that needed multi-controllers.
Yep, because light cycles is definitely going to be a joystick type of thing.
Yeah, and at that time, it was like you're playing 3 different video games in one one quarter.
Exactly. That was a good one. Good review. I love that. Went through a bunch of stuff.
Oh, as far as like controllers go, he is my number one guy at this point. I was already sold on the Xarcade solution.
Yep.
But I hope they listen to him. The things that they do need to adjust, he pointed to all the version 3 console.
Yeah. Now, just even watching those spinners, as soon as he like unboxed it and like just touched them and they just started spinning like forever, it's like, oh, they
Yeah.
definitely have they have the speed they need or the momentum they need to play something like Tempest.
That's the Tempest test, is that spinner continues.
Yep.
If you
It's not just a mwah. Now you were talking about the breakout, the Atari controller. The Atari spinners would not spin like that for sure.
No. It was pretty much you hit a spot on the left where you couldn't go any further, and spot on the right.
Yep, exactly. Whereas these Infinispin.
And I feel like the two competitors here are going to be watching each other's like products and keeping each other competitive. The X Arcade incorporating the spinners, that's what the Pro Max, this new controller, $299 to $500 depending where you look. Those spinners aren't cheap.
Yeah. And the extra button, I like that as well. Being able to program that and just have, one extra button, like they were saying, just being able to exit out of games on like the MAME emulator, for example, can be very handy just to be able to, you're playing this and just boom, one hand, one shot, boom, you're out, and now do something else.
A controller like this isn't just about controlling those games that I want to play. It's about controlling the interface that switches from a Nintendo to a ColecoVision. And where's my select button? Where's my escape button? I had to Google how to get out of a cartridge. I was like, I can get into a game, but I can't get back to my main interface.
And your first instinct is escape, right? But not necessarily.
My first instinct isn't to Google. It's just to like start it, try it.
Exactly. And see what works.
But as you do play with the retro gaming, you will need to search. You will need to know what you're searching for sometimes. If you are searching for ROMs, there's legal places, archives.org does have a nice archive of games that should not be lost.
Yeah.
Despite the hardware's gone, but the game is not.
Exactly. And that's where, since the hardware is gone and there is obviously no support for it and the company probably doesn't exist, like there's nobody fighting for, who's, playing this game without permission. It's not like that at that point. It is about keeping the, the thought of the game alive at that point.
And that's what Old School Gamers does.
That's what we do too.
Yeah, bless you, man, for keeping the old school games alive.
Old School games is something that's been very close to my heart for a very long time.
This is what's going to bring me back into gaming more than these modern games. Like, yeah, I know the VR and the cool 3D shooters that you guys have now. I know when I go down that gaming rabbit hole, I'm never coming out.
Exactly. But now, if you're going to get hardware like that, you're going to, we're going to have to fish you out at some point.
Or at least make me some pizza rolls.
Throw down some pizza rolls every once in a while.
I'm in the middle of a game.
Mom, pizza rolls.
I'm competitive like that.
Yeah. Don't get too competitive on the retro games. Try to play the cooperative ones.
Well, the nice thing with the retro games is that, like, they're short-lived. Like, you have that competitive for a moment and it's done afterwards. It's not like leveling up.
Yeah,
oh,
exactly.
I'm not level.
do the Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine competition. Get that going on, where it's all good-natured competition.
Friendly game rubbing.
Exactly. But I think that was all we had for today. But that was a whole lot of retro game stuff. Again.
Well, that was the backlash to like looking at VR.
Yep.
I was like, oh,
the side of the spectrum a little bit, yeah.
If I'm gonna look at games, I'm gonna look at where we were and where we're going.
Yep, exactly. Got to check it all out.
And now we're gonna be going into the like spring and summer, so we're gonna get back to some music and some technical music at that.
Very cool. What do we got tomorrow?
Feature Friday. Ange is still moving, so she's not totally resituated. We're gonna have some interviews.
Nice.
Special surprises.
Excellent. Interviews tomorrow. And of course, next Thursday, you know where to find us. We'll be here doing this.
And if you don't know where your kids are, they're probably watching Talkin Shhh
I.T. and going to the arcade and playing video games.
Protect your quarters.
That's right. Catch everybody next time. Thanks for joining us.
Night, everyone.
See ya.
We cover digital audio workstations and music tools. We explore theory, gear, and 82. How to arrange, compose, and the art of arranging. Taking a look at AI and how the times have changed. On a PC or a Mac and even with a mobile device. We'll be talking about it all every Thursday night. From software to plugins and synths that entice. Dive deep into tech and let creativity take flight. Talkin IT. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. From bedroom producers to seasoned pros, we're breaking it down so knowledge grows. Whether you're a DJ or a beat making wizard, we got the tips and tricks to make your sound sizzle. Mixing and mastering, that's our jam. With the tutorials and tips on how much rap. Get the best quality from your setup and gear. Tune in every week and lend us your ear. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. We're talking We're talking